Okay.
That is weird. Why should the microphone be loud?
Different impedance.
Alrighty. My name's Paul Sugarman from the Instant Shakespeare Company, and this afternoon we have the Shaw Project presenting a reading of John Bull's Other Island. And so I turn it over to David Cedar to introduce it.
Welcome. This is one of Shaw's three plays that have set in Ireland. Actually, just one act or one play of the Back to Methuselah series that's set in Ireland. There's this one, and then there's O'Flaherty VC, which is a charming one act. This play is in 4 acts. We'll take intermissions between 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I will be narrating. Reading the role of Hodson, Barney Doran, and the grasshopper. Let's introduce all of us as we go along.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. I have a question. Am I still loud enough? Test 1, 2, 6.
You're great.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
I just did some changing. Okay.
So let's go down the line here. Clinton.
Hello, I'm Clinton Powell. I'm reading Tim Haffigan, Patsy Farrell, and Matt Haffigan.
Angus.
Angus Hepburn from London reading Peter Keegan.
Drew.
I'm Drew Bolander, and I'm reading Larry Doyle.
And Ben.
I'm Bennett Pology. I will be Thomas Broadbent. Harumph.
We have Abigail.
Hi, I'm Abigail Cooney, and I'll be reading Nora Riley.
Let's see. Paula.
I'm Paula Hosa, and I will be reading Aunt Judy.
Now let's see. Who have I met? Bill.
Yes, I'm going to be reading Cornelius Doyle.
Is there anyone I missed?
Yep. There's me. I'm David Brown.
Oh, sorry, David.
I'm reading Father Dempsey.
Well, bless you, Father. All right, here we go with Act 1. Great George Street, Westminster, is the address of Doyle and Broadbent, civil engineers. On the threshold, one reads that the firm consists of Mr. Lawrence Doyle and Mr. Thomas Broadbent, and that their rooms are on the first floor. Most of the rooms are private, for the partners, being bachelors and bosom friends, live there. And the door marked private next to the clerk's office is their domestic sitting room, as well as their reception room for clients. The outer door is in the opposite wall. Between the door and the left-hand corner is a hat stand and a table consisting of a large drawing boards on trestles with plans, rolls of tracing paper, mathematical instruments, and other draftsman's accessories on it. In the left-hand wall is the fireplace and the door of an inner room between the fireplace. And against the right-hand wall is a filing cabinet with a cupboard on it, and nearer a tall office desk and stool for one person. In the middle of the room, a large double writing table is set across with a chair at each end for the 2 partners. It is a room which no woman would tolerate, smelling of tobacco and much in need of repapering, repainting, and recarpeting. But this is the effect of bachelor untidiness and indifference, not the want of means, for nothing that Doyle and Broadbent themselves have purchased is cheap, nor is anything they want lacking. At 20 minutes to 5 o'clock on a summer afternoon in 1904, the room is empty. Presently, the outer door is opened and a valet comes through comes in laden with a large Gladstone bag and a strap of rugs. He carries them into the inner room. The baggage belongs to Broadbent, who enters after the valet. He pulls off his overcoat and hangs it with his hat on the stand. Then he comes to the writing table and looks through the letters waiting there for him.
Hudson!
Yes, sir.
Don't unpack, just take out the things I've worn and put in clean things.
Yes, sir.
And look here. Do you remember where I put my revolver?
Revolver, sir? Yes, sir. Mr. Doyle uses it as a paperweight, sir, when he's drawing.
Well, I want it packed, and there's a packet of cartridges somewhere, I think. Find it, pack them as well.
Yes, sir.
By the way, pack your own traps, too. I shall take you with me this time.
Is it a dangerous part you're going to, sir? Should I be expected to carry a revolver, sir?
Perhaps it might be as well. I'm going to Ireland.
Yes, sir.
Don't feel nervous about it, I suppose.
Not at all, sir. I'll risk it, sir.
Have you ever been in Ireland?
No, sir. I understand it's a very wet climate, sir. I'd better pack your India rubber overalls.
No. Where's Mr. Doyle?
I'm expecting him at 5, sir. He went out after lunch.
Anybody looking for me?
A person giving the name of Haffigan has called twice today, sir.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Why didn't he wait? I told him to wait if I wasn't in.
Well, sir, I didn't know you expected him, so I thought it best to not to encourage him, sir.
Oh, he's all right. He's an Irishman. He's not very particular about his appearance.
Yes, sir. I noticed that he was rather Irish.
Yeah, if he calls again, let him come up.
I think I saw him waiting about, sir, when you drove up. Shall I fetch him, sir?
Do, Hudson.
Yes, sir.
And he'll want tea. Let us have some.
I shouldn't think he drank tea, sir.
Ah, well, bring him whatever you think he'd like.
Yes, sir. Here he is, sir. Saw you arrive, sir.
Right, show him in.
Mr. Haffigan.
Tim Haffigan, sir, at your service. The top of the morning to you, Mr. Broadbent.
Good afternoon, Mr. Haffigan.
Ah, and it is the afternoon, is it already? Oh, begorra, what I call the morning is all the time a man fasts after breakfast.
Haven't you lunched?
Divil a lunch.
I'm sorry I couldn't get back from Brighton in time to offer you some, but perhaps...
Not a word, sir, not a word. Sure, it'll do tomorrow. Besides, I'm Irish, sir. A poor author, but a poor, powerful drinker.
I was just about to ring for tea when you came in. Sit down, Mr. Haffigan.
Oh, tea is a good drink if your nerves can stand it. Mine can't.
Try a whiskey and soda?
Oh, there you touch the national weakness, sir. Not that I share it myself. I've seen too much of it, of the mischief of it.
Yes, say when.
Oh, not too strong. I'll say half and half. Just a dram more. The lower half of the tumbler doesn't hold a fair half. Thank you.
You Irishmen certainly know how to drink. Now here's my poor English idea of a whiskey and soda.
And a very good idea it is, too. Drink is the curse of me unhappy country. I take it myself because I've a weak heart and a poor digestion. But in principle, I'm a teetotaler.
So am I, of course. I'm a local optionist to the backbone. You have no idea, Mr. Haffigan, of the ruin that is being wrought in this country by the unholy alliance of the publicans, the bishops, the Tories, and the Times. We must close the public houses at all costs.
Sure, I know. It's awful. I see you're a good liberal like myself, sir.
I am a lover of liberty, like every true Englishman, Mr. Haffigan. My name is Broadbent. If my name were Breitstein, and I had a hooked nose and a house in Park Lane, I should carry a Union Jack handkerchief and a penny trumpet and tax the food of the people to support the Navy League and clamor for the destruction of the last remnants of national liberty.
Oh, not another word. Shake hands.
But I should like to explain.
Sure, I know every word you're going to say before you've said it. I know the sort of man you are. And so you think of coming into Ireland for a bit.
Oh, where else can I go? I'm an Englishman and a liberal. And now that South Africa has been enslaved and destroyed, there is no country left to me to take an interest in but Ireland. Mind, I don't say that an Englishman has not other duties. He has a duty to Finland, a duty to Macedonia, but what sane man can deny that an Englishman's first duty is his duty to Ireland? Unfortunately, we have politicians here more unscrupulous than Bobrikov, more bloodthirsty than Abdul the Damned, and it is under their heel that Ireland is now writhing.
Oh, faith, they've reckoned up with poor old Bobrikov anyhow.
Not that I defend assassination, God forbid. However strongly we may feel that the unfortunate and patriotic young man who avenged the wrongs of Finland on the Russian tyrant was perfectly right from his own point of view, yet every civilized man must regard murder with abhorrence. Not even in defense of free trade would I lift my hand against a political opponent, however richly he might deserve it.
I'm sure you wouldn't, and I honor you for it. You're going to Ireland, then. Out of sympathy, is it?
I'm going to develop an estate there for the Land Development Syndicate, in which I am interested. I am convinced that all it needs to make it pay is to handle it property, as estates are handled in England. You know the English plan, Mr. Haffigan, don't you?
Be that I do, sir. Take all you can out of Ireland and spend it in England. That's it.
My plan, sir, will be to take a little money out of England and spend it in Ireland.
More power to your elbow, and may your shouting never be less. And you're the brother of a boy entirely, and how can I help you? Command me to the last drop of your blood.
Have you ever heard of Garden City?
Do you mean heaven?
Heaven? No. It's near Hitchin. If you can spare half an hour, I'll go into it with you.
I tell you what, give me a prospectus. Let me take it home and reflect on it.
You're quite right. I will. Now, you understand that the map of the city, the circular construction, is only a suggestion.
I'll make a careful note of that.
And what I say is, why not start a garden city in Ireland?
That's just what was on the tip of my tongue to ask you. Why not? Tell me why not?
Well, there are difficulties, and I shall overcome them. But there are difficulties. Now, when I first arrive in Ireland, I shall be hated as an Englishman. As a Protestant, I shall be denounced from every altar. My life may be in danger. Well, I am prepared to face that.
Never fear, sir. We know how to respect a brave enemy.
What I really dread is misunderstanding. I think you could help me to avoid that. When I heard you speak the other evening in Bermondsey at the meeting of the National League, I saw at once that you won't mind my speaking frankly.
I'll tell me all my faults as man to man. I can't stand anything but flattery.
Well, may I put it in this way? That I saw at once that you were a thorough Irishman with all the faults and all the qualities of your race. Rash and improvident, but brave and good-natured. Not likely to succeed in business on your own account, perhaps, but eloquent, humorous, a lover of freedom, and a true follower of that great Englishman Gladstone.
Oh, spare me blushes. I mustn't sit here to be praised to me face, but I confess to the good nature. It's an Irish weakness. I'd share me last shilling with a friend.
I feel sure you would, Mr. Haffigan.
Damn it. Call me Jim. A man that talks about Ireland as you do may call me anything. Give me a howl out of that whiskey bottle. A Holt.
Well, Tim, will you come with me and help to break the ice between me and your warm-hearted, impulsive countrymen?
Well, I came to Madagascar. Will I come to Madagascar or Cochin China with you? But then I come to the North Pole with you if you pay me fair. For the devilish shilling, I have to buy a third-class ticket.
I've not forgotten that, Tim. We must put that little matter on the solid English footing, though the rest can be as Irish as you please. You must come as I hardly know what to call it. If we call you my agent, they'll shoot you. If we call you a bailiff, they'll duck you into the horse pond. I have a secretary already, and Then
we'll call him the Home Secretary and me the Irish Secretary, eh?
Your Irish wit has settled the first difficulty. Now, about your salary.
A salary, is it? Sure, I'd do it for nothing. Only me clothes disgrace you, and I'd be driven to borrow money from your friends, a thing that's against me nature. But I won't take a penny more than 100 a year.
If that will satisfy.
Oh, why shouldn't it satisfy me? 100 a year is at £12 a month, isn't it?
£8.06 and 8pence.
Oh, murder. And I'll have to send 5 to me poor old mother in Ireland. But no matter, I said 100, and what I said I'll stick to, and I'll have to starve for it.
Well, let us say £12 for the first month, and afterward we shall see how we get on.
You're a gentleman, sir. With me mother turns up her toes, you shall take the £5 off. For your expenses must be kept down with a strong hand, and
You're engaged?
Not at all, not at all. Come in, come in. This gentleman is a friend who lives with me here. My partner, Mr. Doyle. This is a new Irish friend of mine, Mr. Tim Haffigan.
sure, it's myself that's proud to meet any friend of Mr. Broadbent's. The top of the morning to you, sir. My heart goes out to you both. It's not often I meet two such splendid specimens of the Anglo-Saxon race.
Wrong for once, Tim. My friend, Mr. Doyle, is a countryman of yours.
Oh, good evening. Will you soon be disengaged?
I must be going. I have an important engagement to the West End.
Well, it's settled then that you come with me.
I should be very pleased to accompany you, sir.
But how soon? Can you start tonight? From Paddington, we go by Milford Haven.
Well, I'm afraid. Oh, Mr. Broadbent, don't humiliate me before a fellow countryman. Look here. The close is up the spout. Give me a £5 note. I'll pay you next Tuesday with me ship comes home. Or you can stop me out on a month's salary. I'll be on the platform at Paddington, punctual and ready. Give me a quick before he comes back. You won't mind me axing, will ya?
Not at all. I was about to offer you an advance for traveling expenses.
Oh, thank you. I'll be there for half an hour before that train starts. Whist, he'll be coming back. Goodbye and God bless you.
Where the devil do you pick up that seedy swindler? What was he doing here?
Oh, there you go. Why are you so down on every Irishman you meet, especially if he's a little shabby? Poor devil. Surely a fellow countryman may pass you the top of the morning without offence, even if his coat is a bit shiny at the seams.
Top of the morning. Oh, did he call you a broth of a boy?
Yes,
And he wished you more power to your elbow?
he did.
And that your shadow might never be less?
Certainly.
And he got about a pint of whiskey out of you?
Well, it did him no harm. Never turned a hair.
How much money did he borrow?
It was not borrowing exactly. He showed me a very honourable spirit about money. I believe he would share his last shilling with a friend.
Oh, no doubt he would share his last shilling with shilling if his friend was a fool enough to let him. But how much did he touch you for?
Nothing. An advance on his salary for travelling expenses.
Salary? In heaven's name, what for?
For being my home secretary, as he very wittily called it.
Oh, I don't see the joke.
You know, you can spoil any joke by being cold-blooded about it. I saw it all right when he said it. It was something really very amusing about the Home Secretary and the Irish Secretary. And at all events, he's evidently the very man to take with me to Ireland to break the ice for me. He can gain the confidence of the people there, make them friendly to me, eh?
Oh, yeah, a nice introduction by George. Do you suppose the whole population of Ireland consists of drunken, begging letter writers? Or even if it did, they would accept one another as references?
Oh, nonsense. He's only an Irishman. Besides, you don't seriously suppose that Haffigan can humbug me, do you?
Oh, no, he's too lazy to take the trouble. All he has to do is to sit there and drink your whiskey while you humbug yourself. However, we needn't argue about Haffigan for two reasons. First, with your money in his pocket, he will never reach Paddington. There are too many public houses in the way. And second, he's not an Irishman at all.
Not an Irishman?
Born in Glasgow. Never was in Ireland in his life. I know all about him.
But he behaved just like an Irishman.
What, like an Irishman? Is it possible that you don't know that all the people, all of this top of the morning and broth of a boy and more power to your elbow business is as particular to England as Albert Hall concerts of Irish music are? No Irishman ever talks like that in Ireland, or ever did, nor ever will. But when a thoroughly worthless Irishman comes to England and finds the whole place full of romantic duffers like you, who will let him loaf and drink and sponge and brag as long as he flatters your sense of moral superiority by playing the fool and degrading himself and his country? He soon learns the antics that take you in. He picks them up at the theatre or the music hall. Haffigan learned the rudiments from his father, who came from my part of Ireland. I knew his uncle's Matt and Andy Haffigan in Roscullen.
But his brogue.
Oh, his brogue. A fat lot you know about brogues. I have heard you call a Dublin accent that you could hang your hat on a brogue. Oh, heaven help you. You don't know the difference between Connemara and Rathmines. Oh, damn Tim Haffigan. Let's drop the subject. He's not worth wrangling about.
What's wrong with you today, Larry? Why are you so bitter?
Well, your letter completely upset me, for one thing.
Why?
You're foreclosing this Roscullen mortgage and turning poor Nicholas Strange out of the house and home has rather taken me aback. For I liked the old rascal when I was a boy and had the run of his park to play in. I was brought up on the property.
But he wouldn't pay the interest. I had to foreclose on behalf of the syndicate. So now I'm off to Roscullen to look after the property myself. You're coming with me, of course.
Oh, that's it. That's what I dread. That's what has upset me.
But don't you want to see your country again after 18 years' absence? To see your people, to be in your old home again?
Yes, I know it all as well as you do.
Well, of course. If you take it in that way, I'm sorry.
Never mind my temper. It's not meant for you. And you ought to know by this time. I have an instinct against going back to Ireland, an instinct so strong that I'd rather go with you to the South Pole than to Roscullen.
What? Here you are, belonging to a nation with the strongest patriotism, the most inveterate homing instinct in the world, and you pretend you'd rather go anywhere than back to Ireland? You don't suppose I believe you, do you? In your heart?
Oh, never mind my heart. An Irishman's heart is nothing more than his imagination. How many, the millions that have left Ireland have ever come back or wanted to come back? And what's the use of talking to you? 3 verses of twaddle about the Irish immigrant sitting on the stile, Mary, or 3 hours of Irish patriotism in Bermondsey or Scotland Division of Liverpool go further with you than all the facts that stare you in the face. Why, man alive, look at me. You know the way I nag and worry and carp and cavil and disparage, and I'm never satisfied and never cry it, and try the patience of my best friends.
Oh, come, Larry, do yourself justice. You're very amusing and agreeable to strangers.
Oh, yes, to strangers. Perhaps if I was a bit stiffer to strangers and a bit easier at home, like an Englishman, I'd be better company to you.
We got on well enough. Of
God.
course, you do have the melancholy of the Celtic race.
Oh, good God.
And also its habit of using strong language when there's nothing the matter.
Nothing the matter. When people talk about the Celtic race, I feel as if I could burn down London. That sort of rot does more harm to 10 coercion acts. Do you suppose a man need be a Celt to feel melancholy in Roscullen? My man, Ireland is people, just as England was, and its breed was crossed by just the same invaders.
True. All the capable people in Ireland are of English extraction. It has often struck me as a most remarkable circumstance that the only party in the Parliament which shows the genuine Old English character and spirit is the Irish party. Look at its independence, its determination, its defiance of bad government, its sympathy with oppressed nationalities all over the world. How English!
Not to mention the solemnity with which it talks old-fashioned nonsense, which it knows perfectly well to be a century behind the times. That's English, if you like.
No, Larry, no. You're thinking of the modern hybrids that now monopolize England. Hypocrites, humbugs, Germans, Jews, Yankees, foreigners, park laners, cosmopolitan riffraff. Don't call them English. They don't belong to the dear old island, but to their own confounded new empire. And by George, they're unworthy of it. I wish them joy of it.
There, do you feel better now, don't you?
I do. Much better.
My dear Tom, you only need a touch of the Irish climate to be as big a fool as I am myself. If all my Irish blood were poured into your veins, you wouldn't turn a hair of your constitution and character. Go and marry the most Englishwoman you could find, and then bring her up in Roscullen. And that son's character will be so like mine and so unlike yours that everybody will accuse me of being his father. Oh, Roscullen. Oh, good God, Lord Roscullen. The dullness, the hopelessness, the ignorance, the bigotry.
It's the usual thing in the country, Larry. Just the same here.
No, the climate is different here. Here, if life is dull, you can be dull too, and no great harm done. But your wits can thicken the soft, moist air on those white, springy roads and the misty rushes and brown bogs, on those hillsides of granite rocks and magenta heather. They've no such colours in the sky, no such lure in the distances, no such sadness in the evenings. Oh, the dreaming. Ah, the dreaming, the torturing, heart-scalding, never satisfying, dreaming. No debauchery that ever coarsened and brutalized an Englishman can take the worth and usefulness out of him like that dreaming. An Irishman's imagination never lets him alone, never convinces him, never satisfies him, but it makes him that he can't face reality, nor deal with it, nor handle it, nor conquer it. He can only sneer at them than do it, and be agreeable to strangers, like a good-for-nothing woman on the streets. It's all dreaming, all imagination. He can't be religious. The inspired churchman that teaches him the sanctity of life and the importance of conduct is sent away empty, while the poor village priest that gives him a miracle or a sentimental story of a saint has cathedrals built for him out of the pennies of the poor. He can't be intelligently political. He dreams of what the Shan van Vogt said in 98. If you want to interest him in Ireland, you've got to call the unfortunate Kathleen Nahulahan and pretend she's a little old woman. It saves thinking, it saves working, it saves everything except imagination. And imagination's a sort of torture that you can't bear without whiskey. At last, you can't bear nothing real at all. You'd rather starve than cook a meal. You'd rather go shabby and dirty and set your mind to take care of your clothes and wash yourself. You nag and squabble at home because your wife isn't an angel and she despises you because you're not a hero. You hate the whole lot around you because they're only poor, slovenly, useless devils like yourself. And all the while there goes on the horrible, senseless, mischievous laughter. Well, you're young. You exchange drinks with the other men. You exchange vile stories with them. As you're too futile to be able to help or cheer them, you chaff and sneer and taunt them for doing the things you daren't do yourself. And all the time you laugh. Eternal derision, eternal envy, eternal folly, eternal fouling and staining and degrading until when you come at last to a country where men take a question seriously and give a serious answer to it, you derive them for having no sense of humour. And plume yourself on your own worthlessness as if it made you better than them.
I'll never despair, Larry. There are great possibilities for Ireland. Home rule will work wonders under English guidance.
Tom, why do you select my most tragic moments for your most irresistible strokes of humour?
Humour? I was perfectly serious. What do you mean? Do you doubt my seriousness about home rule?
I am sure you are serious, Tom, about the English guidance.
Of course I am. Our guidance is the important thing. We English must place our capacity for government without stint at the service of nations who are less fortunately endowed in that respect, so as to allow them to develop in perfect freedom to the English level of self-governance, you know. You understand me?
Oh, perfectly. And Ross Cullen will understand you too.
Of course it will. So that's all right. Now, Larry, I've listened carefully to all you've said about Ireland, and I can see nothing to prevent your coming with me. I mean, what does it all come to? Simply that you were only a young fellow when you were in Ireland, and you'll find that all that chaffing and drinking and not knowing what to be at in Peckham, just the same as in Donnybrook. If you look at Ireland with a boy's eyes, you see only boyish things. You come back with me and look at it with a man's and get a better opinion of your country.
I dare say you're perfectly right in that.
Yeah.
At all events, I know very well that if I had been the son of a labourer instead of the son of a country land agent, I should have struck more grit than I did. Unfortunately, I'm not going back to visit the Irish nation, but to visit my father, and Aunt Judy, and Nora Riley, and Father Dempsey, and the rest of them.
Well, why not? They'll be delighted to see you now that England has made a man of you.
You hit the mark there, Tom, with your true British inspiration.
Common sense, you mean?
No, I don't. You've no more common sense than a gander. No Englishman has any common sense, nor ever had, nor ever will have. You're going on a sentimental expedition for perfectly ridiculous reasons with your head full of political nonsense that would not take in an ordinary, intelligent donkey. But you can hit me in the eye with the simple truth about myself and my father.
I never mentioned your father.
There he is in Roscoff, a land agent who's always been in a small way because he's a Catholic and the landlords are mostly Protestants. What with the land courts reducing rents and land acts turning the big estates into little holdings, he'd be a beggar this day if he hadn't bought his own little farm under the Land Purchase Act. I doubt if he's been further from home than Athen Mullet or for the last 20 years. And here am I, made a man of, as you say, by England.
I assure you, I never meant to.
Oh, don't apologize. It's quite true. I dare say I've learned something in America and a few more remote and inferior spots, but in the main, it's been by living with you and working with your double harness with you that I have learned to live in the real world and not the imaginary one. I owe you more than you. I owe more to you than any Irishman.
Very friendly of you, Larry, old man, but it's all blarney. I like blarney, but it's rot all the same.
No, it's not. I should never have done anything without you. Although I never stop wondering at the blessed old head of yours with all its ideas and watertight compartments and all of the compartments warranted impervious to anything that it doesn't suit you to understand.
Unmitigated rot, Larry, I assure you.
Well, at any rate, you will admit that all my friends are either Englishmen or men of the big world that belongs to the big powers. All the serious part of my life has been lived in that atmosphere. All the serious part of my work has been done with men of that sort. Just think of me as I am now, going back to Roscoff, to the hell of littleness and monotony. How am I going to get on with a little country land agent that ekes out his 5% with a little farming and a scrap of house property in the nearest country town? And what am I to say to him? What is he to say to me?
But you're father and son, man.
Oh, what difference does that make? What would you say if I proposed a visit to your father?
I have always made a point of going to see my father regularly until his mind gave way.
Has he gone mad? He never told me.
He has joined the Tariff Reform League. He would never have done that if his mind had not been weakened. He has fallen a victim to the art of a political charlatan.
You mean that you keep clear of your father because he differs from you in free trade and you don't want to quarrel with him? Well, think of me and my father. He's a nationalist and a separatist. I'm a metallurgist chemist turned civil engineer. Now, whatever else metallurgical chemistry may be, it's not national. It's international. And my business and yours as civil engineers is to join countries, not to separate them. And one real political conviction that our business has rubbed into us is that frontiers are hindrances and flags confounded nuisances.
Only when there is a protective tariff.
Now, look here, Tom, you want to get in a speech on free trade and you're not going to do it. I won't stand it. My father wants to make St. George's Channel a frontier and hoist a green flag on the college green. And I want to bring Galway within 3 hours of Colchester and 24 of New York. I want Ireland to be the brains and imagination of a big commonwealth, not a Robinson Crusoe island. And there's religious difficulty. My Catholicism is a Catholicism of Charlemagne or Dante, qualified by a great deal of modern science and folklore, which Father Dempsey would call the ravens of an atheist. Well, my father's Catholicism is the Catholicism of Father Dempsey.
I don't want to interrupt you, Larry, but you know, this is all gammon. These differences exist in all families, but the members rub on together all right. Of course, there are some questions which touch the very foundations of morals, and on these, I grant you, even the closest relationship cannot excuse any compromise or laxity. Now, for instance,
home rule, South Africa, free trade, and education rate. Well, I should differ from my father in every one of them, probably just as I differ from you about them.
Yes, but you are an Irishman. These things are not serious to you as they are to an Englishman.
What? Not even home rule?
Not even home rule. We owe home rule not to the Irish, but to our English Gladstone. No, Larry, I can't help thinking that there's something behind all this.
What is there behind it? Do you think I'm humbugging you?
Don't fly out at me, old chap. I only thought that
What do you think?
Well, a moment ago, I caught a name which is new to me. Miss Nora Riley, I think. I don't wish to be impertinent, as you know, Larry. But are you sure that she has nothing to do with your reluctance to come to Ireland with me?
Oh, Thomas Broadbent, I surrender.
Ah.
The poor, silly, clever Irishman takes off his hat to God's Englishman. Man who could, in all seriousness, make that recent remark of yours about Home Rule and Gladstone must be simply the champion idiot of all the world. Yet the man who could, in the very next sentence, sweep away all of my special pleading and go straight to the heart of my motives must be a man of genius. But that the idiot and the genius should be the same man, how is it possible? By Jove, I see it all now. I'll write an article about it and send it to Nature.
What on earth?
It's quite simple. You know that the caterpillar is really...
Caterpillar?
Yes, the caterpillar. Now, give your mind to what I'm going to say, for it's new and important scientific theory and of the English national character. A caterpillar...
Look here, Larry, don't be an ass.
I say a caterpillar, and I mean a caterpillar. You'll understand precisely a caterpillar.
Don't put the...
When it gets into a tree, instinctively makes itself look exactly like a leaf, so that both its enemies and its prey mistake it for one, and think it not worth bothering about.
What has that got to do with our English national character?
I'll tell you. The world is as full of fools as a tree is full of caterpillars. Well, the Englishman does what the caterpillar does. He instinctively makes himself look like a fool, eats up all the real fools at his ease, while his enemies let him alone and laugh at him for being a fool like the rest. Oh, nature is cunning, cunning.
You know, Larry, that would never have occurred to me. You Irish people are amazingly clever. Of course, it's all Tommy rot, but it's so brilliant, you know. How the dickens do you think of such things? You really must write an article. You really must write an article about it. They'll pay you something for it. If Nature won't have it, I can get it into engineering for you. I know the editor.
Let's get back to business. I better tell you about Nora Riley.
Oh, never mind. I shouldn't have alluded to her.
I'd rather. Nora has a fortune.
How much?
40 per annum.
40,000?
No, 40. 40 pounds.
That's what you call a fortune in Roscoff, is it?
A girl with a dowry of £5 calls it a fortune in Roscoff. What's more, £40 a year is a fortune there, and Nora Riley enjoys a good deal of social consideration as an heiress on the strength of it. It has helped my father's household get through many a tight place. My father was her father's agent. She came on a visit to us when he died and has lived with us ever since.
Since when? I mean, how old were you when she came?
I was 17. So was she. Now, she being older, she'd have more sense than to stay with us. We were together for 18 months before I went to Dublin to study. When I went home for Christmas and Easter, she was there. I suppose it used to be something of an event for her, though, of course, I never thought of it then.
Were you at all hard hit?
Oh, not really. I had only two ideas at the time. First, to learn to do something, and then to get out of Ireland, have the chance of doing it. Now, she didn't count. I was romantic about her, just as I was romantic about Byron's heroines or the old round tower of Roscoff. But she didn't count any more than they did. I've never crossed St. George's Channel since for her sake. Never even landed at Queenstown and come back to London through Ireland.
But did you ever say anything that would justify her in waiting for you?
No, never. But she is waiting for me.
How do you know?
She writes to me on her birthday. She used to write on mine and send me little things as presents. But I stopped that by pretending it was of no use when I was traveling, as they got lost in the foreign post offices.
You answer the letters?
Not very punctually. When they get acknowledged, but they get acknowledged at one time or another.
How do you feel when you see her handwriting?
Uneasy? I'd give £50 to escape a letter. What do you mean by
Well, of course, I know that the moral code is different in Ireland, but in England, it's not considered fair to trifle with a woman's affections.
You mean that an Englishman would get engaged to another woman and return Nora letters and presents with her, and to say he was unworthy of her and wished for her every happiness?
Well, even that would set the poor girl's mind at rest.
Would it? I wonder. One thing I can tell you is that is that Nora would wait till she died of old age sooner than ask my intentions or condescend to hint at the possibility of my having any. You don't know what Irish pride is. England may have knocked a good deal of it out of me, but she's never been in England, and if I had chose between wounding the delicacy in her and hitting her in the face, I'd hit her in the face without any moment's hesitation.
You know, all this sounds rather interesting. There's the Irish charm about it. Well, that's the worst of it. The Irish charm doesn't exist for you.
Oh, yes, it does, but it's the charm of a dream. Live in contact with your dreams and you will get something out of their charm. Live in contact with facts and you will get something out of their brutality. I wish I could find a country to live in where the facts were not brutal and the dreams were not unreal.
Well, don't despair, Larry, old boy. Things may look black, but there will be a great change after the next election.
Oh, get out, you idiot.
You may laugh, but we shall see. However, don't let us argue about that. Now, come now. You ask my advice about Miss Riley.
No, I don't. Damn your advice. Let's have it all the same.
Well, everything you tell me about her impresses me favorably. She seems to have the feelings of a lady, and though we must face the fact that in England her income would hardly maintain her in the lower middle class.
Now, look here, Tom, that reminds me. When you go to Ireland, just drop talking about middle class and bragging of belonging to it. In Ireland, you're either a gentleman or you're not. If you want to be particularly offensive to Nora, you can call her a papist. But if you call her middle class, a middle class woman, oh, heaven help you.
Never fear, you're all descended from the same ancient kings. I know that. I'm not so tactless that you think, my boy. I expect to find Miss Riley a perfect lady, and I strongly advise you to come and have another look at her before you make up your mind about her. By the way, have you a photograph of her?
Our photograph stopped at 25.
Oh, yes, I suppose so. Larry, you treated that poor girl disgracefully.
Oh, by George, if she knew that two men were talking about her like this, I wouldn't...
Yeah, she wouldn't like it, would she? No, of course not. We ought to be ashamed of ourselves, Larry. You know, I have a sort of presentiment that Miss Riley is a very superior woman.
Oh, you have you?
Yes, I have. There's something very touching about the history of this beautiful girl.
Oh, here's a chance for Nora and for me. Hudson.
Did you call, sir?
You packed for me too. I'm going to Ireland with Mr. Broadbent.
Right, sir.
Thank you, old chap. Thank you.
And curtain on Act 1. Let's take a little break and resume at
when we bloody well feel like it.
No. I think. Well, let's make it 2:00 just because it's easier than 5 minutes is too short. 10 minutes is really too long, but it's more direct than saying 7 minutes. Oh, okay.
Figured it out, have you?
Trying to intimidate us by the use of the odd numbers.
Is there a rule about putting ourselves back on camera? I forgot. Anybody there?
I think you're okay. I think it's legal. There he is. Just keep in mind we're live.
Oh, right. So I won't talk about that thing with you and the sheep.
Thank you. Kind of you.
How's it going out there?
Oh, it's good. It's good.
Am I visible? Yeah, I'm visible.
Yeah. You are visible, yes. Also,
what were you saying?
Do you hear that?
What were you saying? Be quiet to partway through.
Oh, you heard that?
No, you killed your microphone.
Oh, good.
But
well, you don't hear it.
I heard what was happening. I thought it sounded like loud.
Okay, it's a dog barking.
Oh, okay.
He's the weirdest dog. He's fine until someone goes by on a skate or a scooter or any of those things that
Oh,
kids.
God.
And I don't know. He was a rescue, and he's got some sort of trauma with that. It's very
Yeah.
weird. Otherwise, he's fine.
Yeah,
Hey, you-
my dog's like that.
I had a rescue cat once that used to go bananas when you pulled out garbage bags and rustled them.
Oh gosh, that's because that one I almost understand. That's scary.
Yeah, that's right. You begin to realize there's something in his background that we don't
Yeah.
want to know about.
Trauma.
No,
Yeah.
that's awful.
Yeah.
We have a rescue Chihuahua who when we picked him up, he had a cone on because he just had surgery, and we were picking him up and taking him on a plane. And the woman had to sit down with my dad because my dad's the one who picked him up, and she's like, "We need to have a little talk." Okay, this is on live, but I'm going to tell the story anyway.
Hey, there he is.
Oh, puppy!
There he is.
Oh, wow, big boy.
Big boy. Yeah.
Yeah.
He just looks like.
Well, so this woman sat my dad down. She said, "We need to have a little talk about Wally, who is the Chihuahua's name." And she said, "So he has a problem with his private parts."
With his what?
She said another word, but I will say
private parts.
It's been torn so that what usually stays in is always out.
Oh, God.
So he's going to have to require looking after, and he is very skittish. And to this day, he is exposed. We have to make sure we have to clean him quite often because of it. And he has had some trauma in his background that he likes 4 people and everybody else freaks him out. He'll bark till the cows come home. So
yeah,
there's a lot of to rescue a dog is kind of.
Did anybody watch Fareed Zakaria this morning?
No.
A story just jumped at me. This 12-year-old and 16-year-old brothers lost their mother, their only parent, couple of years ago, maybe a little longer. They had nothing but the house she left them, which was falling apart. Then they got rooked by some contractor they had gotten to do some fixing up. He grabbed all their money and absconded, something like that. I mean, this like the worst story in the world. In the same story is one of these rescue groups that rebuilds houses after the hurricanes. I think that's what it was. All came together and rebuilt their house. And it's like, in 30 seconds, the range of what people do, and it's the same in these stories. You've got these animals we've rescued, terrible things have happened to them.
Yeah.
And, yet we're not doing that, and we take care of them.
People are always looking for evidence of whether the world as a whole is good or bad, and driving themselves crazy, realizing it's not just even a gray area. It's all these different colors.
Somebody said, we're all Jesus, we're all Hitler. Just a scary thought.
I agree. I'd agree with that.
Yeah. Well,
the way I always think of it is
varying degrees
about 9/11. I know that I have in me both the person that would help somebody stand to the side to get out of the way, let other people go. I also have in me the guy who would be running down the damn stairs and say, "Get the fuck out of my way."
Yeah.
And
I would go farther. You're running down the stairs saying, "Get the fuck out of my way," because you want to save yourself. You're scared.
Yeah.
I think we're all Jesus, we're all Hitler is worse than that. It's like, not just to save ourselves. Oh, mommy and daddy are home. I'm going to have to move or figure something out. Dog's going to go crazy greeting. My house sitting is over. Excuse me for a second, folks.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll be right back.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Oh,
Let's get the sound
it's
off.
one of his really talky ones, folks.
Oh, yeah.
So now it's just going to be me and the grasshopper.
Well, that only carries on for a little bit.
I love the stage directions. I do wish we could record more stage directions in these because of, the stage directions for how each chirp.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So funny.
Yeah, well.
How are you going to make that sound plaintively, David? Okay. I'll go with that.
I wanted a clicker, but I couldn't find one, so I thought, no, I'll do it this way.
Have you no Catholic friends?
No, I mean, you know, one of those hand clicker things.
Yeah, that you need a Catholic.
There are plenty of in the neighborhood, but why especially Catholic?
My wife did nonsense, where they use one of those, and everybody in the audience who is Catholic remembers going to Catholic school, where the teacher would put up their hand and make the clicker to shut the kids up, you know.
Oh,
and that governed their lives for their formative years. So it's an almost like they have a Pavlovian response to clickers.
Well,
That must be British, because
my
I went to
singing in Catholic
Catholic schools
churches,
in
I don't-
America that didn't do that.
Oh, no.
Yeah, Catholic schools in America, sometimes they just slap the ruler on the desk.
Well, that's true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that I do remember.
Yeah.
Well, I went to public school, and in kindergarten, she didn't have a clicker, but she could snap her fingers like a rocket, a rifle shot. Man,
Yeah.
my
would snap.
mother, was in school. Well,
It was a traumatic experience, my kindergarten.
my mother was in school,
Quick question, I'm sorry.
in high school during the First World War.
Quick question, I'm sorry, Dave.
Sorry. Yep.
Does anybody hear that?
Here,
No.
what?
No,
Great.
hear what?
Okay, never mind. That answers the question. Sorry,
Yep.
I interrupted, Dave.
Anyway, my mother said that at the beginning, and this question you couldn't get away with now for anything, but my mother said that at the beginning of each school year, the principal would come around to the classrooms. He'd walk in, he'd have a belt in his hand, and he would slam it down on the desk
Oh, God.
loudly. And he would say, "You hear that? If you don't behave yourselves, you'll feel that."
Ooh,
God.
They
Oh.
behave themselves.
At the age of 10, I had a teacher that if we sat formally at desks, and if a pencil or a ruler was sticking out over the edge of the desk, he'd smack it down and it would fly through the air and nearly kill somebody. Yeah.
That's kind of funny, actually.
Yeah, that was his idea of discipline.
That's actually kind of funny.
Oh, God. I survived that year, thank God, but only just.
So are we all back?
I think we're all back, ready to proceed with Act Two. Sorry, some of you have to wait a very long time to get in on this play, but that's the way it is. All right, here we go. Act Two. Roscoff, westward a hillside of granite rock and heather slopes upward across the prospects from south to north. A huge stone stands on it in a naturally impossible place, as if it had been tossed up there by a giant. Over the brow, in the desolate valley beyond, is a round tower. A lonely white high road, trending its way westward past the tower, loses itself at the foot of the far mountains. It is evening, and there are great breadths of silken green in the big Irish sky. The sun is setting. A man with the face of a young saint, yet with white hair, is standing near the stone in a trance of intense melancholy, looking over the hills as if by mere intensity of gaze, he could pierce the glories of the sunset and see into the streets of heaven. He is dressed in black and is rather more clerical in appearance than most English curates are nowadays, but he does not wear the collar and waistcoat of a parish priest. He is roused from his trance by the chirp of an insect from a tuft of grass in a crevice of the stone.
And is that yourself, Mr. Grasshopper? I hope I see you well this fine evening. Oh, that's right. I suppose now you've come out to make yourself miserable by admiring the sunset. Ah, you're a true Irish grasshopper. Oh, 3 cheers for old Ireland, is it? That helps you to face out the misery and the poverty and the torment, doesn't it? Ah, it's no use. My poor little friend, If you could jump as far as a kangaroo, you couldn't jump away from your own heart and its punishment. You can only look at heaven from here. You can't reach it. Yeah, see, that's the gate of glory, isn't it? Oh, sure, it's the wise grasshopper you are to know that. But tell me this, Mr. Unworldly Wise Man, why does the sight of heaven wring your heart and mine, as the sight of holy water wrings the heart of the devil? What wickedness have you done to bring that curse on you? Oh, here, where are you jumping to? Where's your manners to go skyrocketing like that out of the box in the middle of your confession? I accept your apology, but don't do it again. Now, tell me one thing before I tell you to go home to bed. What would you say this country was? Hell or purgatory? No, hell, huh? Faith, I'm afraid you're right. I wonder what you and me did when we were alive to get sent here. Oh, well, as you say, it's a delicate subject, and I won't press it on you. Now, off with you. Godspeed you.
Glory be to God, glory be to God, O Holy Mother, and all the saints, oh, murder.
Who's there? What's that? Oh, Patsy Farrell. Oh, now what are you doing here?
Oh, for the love of God, don't leave me here with the grasshopper. I heard it speak to you. Don't let it do me any harm, Father.
Get up, you foolish man. Get up. Are you afraid of a poor insect because I pretended it was talking to me?
Oh, it was no pretending, Father dear. Didn't it give you 3 cheers and say it was a devil out of hell? Oh, say you'll save me safe home, Father, and put a blessing on me or something.
What were you doing there, Patsy? Listening? Were you spying on me?
No, Father. On me oath, on my soul, I wasn't. I was waiting to meet Master Larry and carry his luggage from the car, and I fell asleep on the grass, and you woke me talking to the grasshopper, and I heard its wicked little voice. Oh, do you think I'll die before the year's out, Father?
For shame, Patsy. Is that your religion, to be afraid of a little dishy grasshopper? Suppose it was a devil. What call have you to fear it? If I could catch it, I'd make you take it home with you in your hat for a penance.
Oh, sure. If you won't let it harm me, I'm not afraid, Your Reverence.
Patsy, what did I tell you about calling me Father Keegan and Your Reverence? What did Father Dempsey tell you about it?
Yes, Father.
Father?
All right. What am I to call you? Father Dempsey says you're not a priest. So what am I to call you? Not a man? And how do we know what is to happen to us if we was showed any disrespect to you? And sure, they say, once a priest, always a priest.
It is not for the likes of you, Patsy, to go behind the instruction of your parish priest and set yourself up to judge whether your church is right or wrong.
Sure, I know that, sir.
The church let me be its priest as long as it thought me fit for its work. When it took away me papers, it meant you to know that I was only a poor madman, unfit and unworthy to take charge of the souls of the people.
But wasn't it only because you knew more Latin than Father Dempsey that he was jealous of you?
Oh, how dare you, Patsy Farrell, put your own wicked little spites and foolishness into the hearts of your priest. For 2 pins, I'd tell him what you just said.
Oh, sure you wouldn't.
Oh, wouldn't I? God forgive you, you're a little better than a heathen.
Indeed, I am, Father. It's me brother, the tinsmith in Dublin you're thinking of. Sure, he had to be a free thinker when he learned a trade and went to live in the town.
Well, he'll get to heaven before you if you're not careful, Patsy. Now, you listen to me once and for all. You talk to me and pray for me by the name of Peter Keegan. So you will. And when you're angry and tempted to lift your hand against the donkey or stamp your foot on the little grasshopper, remember that the donkey's Peter Keegan's brother and the grasshopper Peter Keegan's friend. And when you're tempted to throw a stone at a sinner or a curse at a beggar, remember that Peter Keegan is a worse sinner and a worse beggar. And keep the stone and the curse for him the next time you meet him. Now say, God bless you, Peter, to me before I go. Just to practice you a bit.
Sure, it wouldn't be right, Father. I can't.
Yes, you can. Now out with it, or I'll put this stick into your hand and make you hit me with it.
Sure, it's your blessing I want, Father Keegan. I'll have no luck without it.
Oh, get up out of that, man. Don't kneel to me. I am not a saint.
Oh, in your throat jar, sir. Don't set it on me, Father. I'll do anything you bid me.
You boss, and you don't you see that it only whistled to tell me Miss Riley's coming? There, look at her, and pull yourself together for shame. Off with you in the road. You'll be late for the car if you don't make haste. I can see the dust of it in the gap already.
Oh, the Lord save us.
Mr. Keegan, I want to speak to you a minute if you don't mind.
An hour if you like, Miss Riley. You're always welcome. Shall we sit down?
Thank you. They say you did a graduate traveling at a time.
Well, you see, I'm not a newsman. When I was young, I admired the older generation of priests that had been educated in Salamanca. So when I felt sure of my vocation, I went to Salamanca. Then I walked from Salamanca to Rome and stayed in a monastery there for a year. My pilgrimage to Rome taught me that walking is a better way of traveling than the train. So I walked from Rome to the Sorbonne in Paris. And I wish I could have walked from Paris to Oxford, but for I was very sick on the sea. After a year of Oxford, I had to walk to Jerusalem to walk the Oxford feeling off me. From Jerusalem, I came back to Patmos and spent 6 months at the monastery of Mount Athos. From that, I came to Ireland and settled down as a parish priest until I went mad.
Oh, don't say that.
Why not? Don't you know the story? How I confessed a black man and gave him absolution, and how he put a spell on me and drove me mad.
How can you talk such nonsense about yourself? For shame.
Oh, it's not nonsense at all. It's true. Well, in a way. But never mind the black man. Now that you know what a travelled man I am, what can I do for you? Dear Miss Nora, don't pluck the little flower. If it was a pretty baby, you wouldn't want to pull its head off and stick it in a vase of water to look at. Oh, there. No. Be easy, my son. She won't spoil the swing swong in your little tree. Oh, you see, I'm quite cracked. But never mind. I'm harmless. Now, what is it?
Only idle curiosity. I wanted to know whether you found Ireland. I mean, the country part of Ireland, of course. Very small and backward-like when you came back to it from Rome and Oxford and all the great cities.
Oh, when I went to those great cities, I saw wonders I had never seen in Ireland. But when I came back to Ireland, I found all the wonders there waiting for me. You see, they'd been there all the time, but my eyes had never been opened to them. I didn't know what my own house was like because I'd never been outside it.
Well, do you think that's the same with everybody?
With everybody who has eyes in his soul as well as in his head.
But really and truly now, weren't the people rather disappointing? I should think that the girls must have seemed rather coarse and dowdy after the foreign princesses and people. But I suppose a priest wouldn't notice that.
It's a priest's business to notice everything. I won't tell you all I noticed about women, but I tell you this. The more a man knows and the further he travels, the more likely he is to marry a country girl afterwards.
You're joking, Mr. Keegan. I'm sure you are.
Well, my way of joking is to tell you the truth. It's the funniest joke in the world.
Go along with you.
Shall we go down to the road and meet the car? Patsy Farrell told me you were expecting young Doyle.
Oh, I'm not expecting him particularly. It's a wonder he's come back at all. After staying away 18 years, he can hardly expect us to be very anxious to see him now, can he?
Well, not anxious, perhaps, but you will be curious to see how much he's changed in all these years.
I suppose it's all that brings him back to look at us, just to see how much we've changed. Well, he can wait and see me in candlelight. I didn't come out to meet him. I'm going to walk to the Round Tower.
You couldn't do better this fine evening. I'll tell him where you've gone. He's come to torment you, and you're driven already to torment him.
By this time, the car has arrived and dropped 3 of its passengers on the high road at the foot of the hill. It is a monster jaunting car, black and dilapidated, one of the last survivors of the public vehicles known to earlier generations as Bianchini cars, the Irish having laid violent language on the name of their projector, one Bianconi, an enterprising Italian. The 3 passengers are the parish priest, Father Dempsey, Cornelius Doyle, Larry's father, and Broadbent.
This is a bit of a climb, Mr. Broadbent, but it's shorter than going round by the road.
Just a moment, Mr. Doyle. I want to look at this stone. It must be Finian's die-cast.
What?
Murray describes it, one of your great national heroes. I can't pronounce the name. Finian somebody, I think.
Is it Finn McCool, you mean?
I dare say it is. Murray says that this huge stone, probably of druidic origin, is still pointed out as the die cast by Finn in his celebrated match with the devil.
Just how word I ever heard of it.
Don't believe any such nonsense, sir. There never was any such thing. When people talk to you about Finn McCool and the like, you take no notice of them. It's all idle stories and superstition.
You don't suppose I believe it, do you?
Well, I thought you did. Do you see the top of the Round Tower there? Now that's an antiquity worth looking at.
Have you any theory as to what the Round Towers were for?
Terry, me.
Father Dempsey is the priest of the parish, Mr. Broadbent. What would he be doing with a theory?
I have a knowledge of what the Round Towers were, if that's what you mean. They are the 4 fingers of the early church, pointing us all to God.
Oh, okay. The salmon's broken too. You stupid ass! What do you mean?
Are you drunk, Patsy Farrell? Did I tell you to carry that hamper carefully, or did I not?
Sure, my foot slipped. How can I carry 3 men's luggage at once?
You were told to leave behind what you couldn't carry and go back for it.
And whose things was I to leave behind? How would your reverence think if I left your hamper behind in your wet grass? Or how would the master say if I left the salmon and the goose by the side of the road for anyone to pick up?
Oh, you've a deal to say for yourself, you butterfingered Omadun. Well, Aunt Judy sees the state of the salmon. She'll talk to you. Here, give me that bird and that fish there and take Father Dempsey's hammer to his house for him. And then come back for the rest.
Do, Patsy. And mind, you don't fall down again.
Sure,
Lucy, here's Aunt Judy. Aunt Judy.
Aunt Judy?
She was here a minute ago.
Oh, surely to goodness, that's not you, Larry.
How could he be, Larry? Woman alive. Larry's in no hurry home, it seems. I haven't set eyes on him. This is his friend, Mr. Broadbent. Mr. Broadbent, my sister Judy.
I fancy, Mr. Broadbent. Fancy me taking you for Larry. Sure, we haven't seen a sight of him for 18 years, and he was only a lad when he left us.
It's not Larry's fault. He was to have been here before me. He started in our motor an hour before Mr. Doyle arrived to meet us at Anthem Mullet, intending to get here long before me.
Lord save us, do you think he's had an accident?
No. He's wired to say he's had a breakdown. We'll come on as soon as he can. He expects to be here about 10.
Oh, there now. Fancy him trusting himself in a motor, and we all expecting him. Oh, just like him. He'd never do anything like anybody else. Well, what can't be cured must be endured. Come on in, all of you. You must be dying for your tea, Mr. Broadbent.
Oh, I'm afraid it's too late for tea.
What a bit. We never have it earlier than this. I hope they gave you a good dinner at Athen Mullet.
If that's my line, I apologize. My computer just froze.
Yes.
What page are we on?
34, bottom.
Just jump me up to the page. 34 bottom?
Mhm.
No. Oh, it's not my line. Oh, it is my line. Oh, excellent.
Mm.
By the way, hadn't I see about a room at the hotel?
The hotel?
What hotel?
Indeed, you're not going to a hotel.
Uh,
You'll stay with us. We'd have put you into Larry's room, only the boy's palliasse is too short for you. But we'll make a comfortable bed for you on the sofa in the parlour.
You're very kind, Miss Doyle, but really, I'm ashamed to give you so much trouble unnecessarily. I shan't mind the hotel in the least.
Man alive. There's no hotel in Roscoff.
No hotel? Why, the driver told me there was the finest hotel in Ireland here.
Or would you mind what the like of him would tell you? Sure, he'd say whatever was the least trouble to himself and the pleasantest to you, thinking you might give him a threepenny bit for himself or the like.
Perhaps there's a public house?
Yeah, there's 17.
Ah, then, how could you stay at a public house? They'd have no place to put you, even if it was the right place for you to go. Oh, come, is it the sofa you're afraid of? If it is, you can have me on bed. I can sleep with Nora.
Not at all. I should be only too delighted, but to upset your arrangements in this
That's
way.
all right. It'll be no trouble at all. Where's Nora?
Oh, how do I know? She slipped out a little while ago. I thought she was going to meet the car.
It's a queer thing for her to run out of the way at such a time.
Yeah, sure, she's a queer girl altogether. Come in.
I'll say good night, Mr. Broadbent. If there's anything I can do for you in this parish, let me know.
Thank you, Father Dempsey. Delighted to have met you, sir.
Good night, Miss Doyle.
Oh, won't you stay to tea?
Not tonight, thank you kindly. I have business to do at home. Have you left that hamper for me?
Yes, Your Reverence.
That's a good lad.
Father Keegan says.
What's that you say?
Father Keegan?
How often have you heard me bid you call Mr. Keegan in his proper name, the same as I do? Father Keegan, indeed. Can't you tell the difference between your priest and any old madman in a black coat?
Sure, I'm afraid he'll put a spell on me.
You mind what I tell you, or I'll put a spell on you that'll make you lip. Do you mind that now?
Oh, why can't you hold your tongue, Patsy, before Father Dempsey?
Well, what was I to do? Father Keegan bid me tell you Miss Nora was gone to the ruined tower.
And why couldn't you wait to tell us until Father Dempsey was gone?
I was afraid of forgetting it, and then maybe he'd send the grasshopper or that little dark looker into me at night to remind me of it.
Yeah, you great gom, you, with your grasshoppers and dark lookers. Here, take up them things and let me hear no more of all your foolish lip. You can take the salmon under your ox there.
Oh, I can take the goose too, sir. Put it on my back and put the neck of it in my mouth.
Oh, for shame, Patsy, to offer to take the goose in your mouth that we have to eat after you. The master will bring it for you.
What the deuce does Nora want to go to the round tower for?
Oh, the Lord knows. Romancing, I suppose. Perhaps she thinks Larry would go there to look for her and see her safe home.
I'm afraid it's all the fault of my motor. Miss Riley must not be left to wait and walk home alone at night. Shall I go for her?
Dora, what had happened to her? Hurry in now, Corny. Come in, Mr. Broadbent. I left the tea on the hob to draw, and it'll be black if we don't go in to drink it.
The round tower stands about half an Irish mile from Roscoff, some 50 yards south of the road, on a knoll with a circle of wild greensward on it. The road once ran over this knoll, but modern engineering has tempered it to the level through the B&Kinney car by carrying the road partly round the knoll and partly through a cutting. On the ledge of this slope, at the top of the path, Nora is straining her eyes in the moonlight, watching for Larry. At last she gives it up with a sob of impatience and retreats to the hoary foot of the tower, where she sits down discouraged and cries a little. Then she settles herself resignedly to wait and hums a song, not an Irish melody, but a hackneyed English drawing room ballad of the season before last, until some slight noise suggests a footstep, when she springs up eagerly and runs to the edge of the slope.
Is that you, Larry? Who's that?
Don't be alarmed.
Oh, what an English accent you got.
I must introduce myself.
Not you. Who are you? What do you want?
I'm really so sorry to have alarmed you, Miss Riley. My name is Broadbent, Larry's friend, you know.
And has Mr. Doyle not come with you?
No, I've come instead. I hope I am not unwelcome.
I'm sorry Mr. Doyle should have given you the trouble, I'm sure.
Well, you see, as a stranger and as an Englishman, I thought it would be interesting to see the round tower by moonlight.
Oh, you came to see the tower. I thought... Oh, of course, I was startled. It's a beautiful night, isn't it?
Lovely! And I must explain why Larry has not come himself.
Why should he come? He's seen the tower often enough. It's no attraction to him. And what do you think of Ireland, Mr. Broadbent? Have you ever been here before?
Never.
And how do you like it?
I can hardly trust myself to say how much I like it. The magic of this Irish scene, and I really don't want to be personal, Miss Riley, but the charm of your Irish voice.
Get along with you, Mr. Broadbent. You're breaking your heart about me already, I dare say, after seeing me for 2 minutes in the dark.
The voice is just as beautiful in the dark, you know. Besides, I've heard a great deal about you from Larry.
Have you now? Well, that's a great honor, I'm sure.
I've looked forward to meeting you more than anything else in Ireland.
Dear me, did you now?
I did, really. I wish you'd taken half as much interest in me.
Oh, I was dying to see you, of course. I dare say you can imagine the sensation an Englishman like you would have among us poor Irish people.
Now you're chaffing me, Miss Riley, and you know you are. You mustn't chaff me. I'm very much in earnest about Ireland and everything Irish. I'm very much in earnest about you and about Larry.
Larry has nothing to do with me, Mr. Broadbent.
If I really thought that, Miss Riley, I should let myself feel that charm of which I spoke about more deeply than I.
Is it making love to me you are?
Oh, my word, I believe I am, Miss Riley. And if you say that to me again, I shan't answer for myself. All the harps of Ireland are in your voice. Stop laughing. Stop laughing, do you hear? I'm in earnest. In English earnest. When I say a thing like that to a woman, I mean it. I beg your pardon.
How dare you touch me?
There are not many things I would not dare for you. That does not sound right, perhaps, but I
think you ought to be ashamed. I think if you were a gentleman and me alone with you in this place at night, you would rather die than do such a thing.
You mean that it's an act of treachery to Larry?
Indeed, I don't. What has Larry got to do with it? It's an act of disrespect and rudeness to me. It shows what you take me for. You can go on your way now and I'll go on mine. Good night, Mr. Broadbent.
No, please, Miss Marley, one moment. Listen to me. I'm serious. I'm desperately serious. Tell me that I'm interfering with Larry. I should go straight from this spot back to London, never see you again. That's on my honor. I will. Am I interfering with him?
I should think you ought to know better than me whether you're interfering with him. You've seen him oftener than I have. You know him better than I do by this time. You've come to me quicker than he has, haven't you?
I'm bound to tell you, Miss Riley, that Larry has not arrived in Roscoff yet. He meant to get here before me, but his car broke down. He may not arrive until tomorrow.
Is that the truth?
Yes, that's the truth. You're glad of that?
Glad indeed. Why should I be glad? As we've waited 18 years for him, we can afford to wait a day longer, I should think.
Well, if you really feel like that about him, there may be a chance for another man yet, eh? Yeah.
I suppose people are different in England, Mr. Broadbent, so perhaps you don't mean any harm. In Ireland, nobody'd mind what a man say in fun, nor take advantage of what a woman might say in answer to it. If a woman couldn't talk to a man for 2 minutes at their first meeting without being treated by the way you're treating me, no decent woman would ever talk to a man at all.
I don't understand that. I don't admit that. I am sincere. My intentions are perfectly honorable. I think you will accept the fact that I am an Englishman as a guarantee that I am not a man to act hastily or romantically, although I confess that your voice has had such an extraordinary effect on me just now when you asked me so quaintly whether I was making love to you.
I never thought.
Oh, no, of course you didn't. I'm not so stupid as that. But I couldn't bear your laughing at the feeling it gave me. You don't know what you don't. Will you be my wife?
Indeed, I won't. The idea. All right, come home, Mr. Broadbent, and get your senses back again.
Oh.
You're not accustomed to poaching punch in the evening after your tea.
Do you mean to say that I would? Oh my God! Did I appear drunk to you, Miss Riley?
How many tumblers have you?
2.
The flavor of the turf prevented you from noticing the strength of it. You'd better come home to bed.
But this is such a horrible doubt to put into my mind. For heaven's sake, Miss Riley, am I really drunk?
You'll be able to judge better in the morning. Come on now back with me and think no more about it.
I must be drunk. Frightfully drunk, for your voice drove me out of my sense. No! On my word, on my most sacred word of honor, I tripped Miss Riley over that stone. It was an accident. It was indeed.
Yes, of course it was. Just take my arm, Mr. Broadbent, while we're going down the path to the road. You'll be all right then.
I can't sufficiently apologize, Miss Riley, or express my sense of your kindness when I'm in such a disgusting state. How could I be such a... Oh! Damn this, Heather! My foot caught in it.
Steady now, steady. Come along, come.
Yeah.
Act 3. Next morning, Broadbent and Larry are sitting at the ends of a breakfast table in the middle of a small grass plot before Cornelius Doyle's house. They have finished their meal and are buried in newspapers. The background to this breakfast is the house, a small white slated building accessible by a half-glazed door. A person coming out into the garden by this door would find the table straight in front of him and a gate leading to the road halfway down the garden to his right. Or if he turned sharp to his left, he could pass round the end of the house through an unkempt shrubbery. The mutilated remains of a huge plaster statue, nearly dissolved by the rains of a century and vaguely resembling a majestic female in Roman draperies, with a wreath on her head, stands neglected amid the laurels. Such statues, though apparently works of art, grow naturally in the Irish gardens. The germination is a mystery to the oldest inhabitants, to whose means and tastes they are totally foreign.
You been to the village?
No use, sir. We'll have to get everything from London by parcel post.
Hope they made you comfortable last night.
I was no worse than you were on that sofa, sir. One expects to rough it here, sir.
No, we shall have to look out for some other arrangement. Still, it's no end of a joke. How do you like the Irish, Hodson?
Well, sir, they're all right anywhere but in their own country. I've known lots of them in England and generally like them, but here I seem simply to hate them. The feeling come over me the moment we landed at Cork, sir. It's no use my pretending, sir. I can't bear them. My mind rises up against their ways, and somehow they rub me the wrong way all over.
Oh, but their faults are on the surface. At heart, they're one of the finest races on earth. By the way, Hudson.
Yes, sir.
Did you notice anything about me when I came in with that lady?
No, sir.
Not any, You may speak frankly.
I didn't notice nothing, sir. What sort of thing did you mean, sir?
Well, I mean, to put it plainly, was I drunk?
No, sir.
Quite sure.
Well, I should have said rather the opposite, sir. Usually when you've been enjoying yourself, you're a bit hearty-like. Last night you seemed rather low, if anything.
Well, I certainly have no headache. Did you try the poteen, Hodson?
I just took a mouthful, sir. Tasted of peat. Something horrid, sir. The people here call peat turf. Poteen and strong porter is what they like, sir. I'm sure I don't know how they can stand it. Give me beer, I say.
By the way, you told me I couldn't have porridge for breakfast, but Mr. Doyle had some.
Yes, sir. Very sorry, sir. They call it stirabout, sir. That's how it was. They know no better, sir.
All right. I'll have some tomorrow. Ah, good morning, Miss Doyle.
Oh, good morning. Have you done?
Quite, thank you. You must excuse us for not waiting for you. The country air tempted us to get up early.
Oh, do you call this early? God help you.
And Judy probably breakfasted at 6:30.
Wished you dragging the parlour chairs out into the garden and giving Mr. Broadbent his death over his meals out here in the cold air. Why'd you put up with this foolishness, Mr. Broadbent?
Oh, I assure you I like the open air.
Oh, go along. How can you like what's not natural? I hope you slept well.
Did anything wake you up with a thump at 3 o'clock? I thought the house was falling, but then I'm a very light sleeper.
I seem to recall that one of the legs of the sofa in the parlour had a way of coming out unexpectedly 18 years ago. Was it that, Tom?
Oh, it doesn't matter. I wasn't hurt. At least,
Oh, no, what a shame. And I told Patsy Farrell to put a nail in it.
Oh, he did, Miss Doyle. There was a nail, certainly.
Oh, dear, oh, dear. Oh.
God save all here.
Oh, it's that yourself, Matt Haffigan. Do you remember me?
No. Who are you?
Oh, I'm sure you remember him, Mr. Haffigan.
I suppose it'll be young Larry Doyle that was.
Yes.
I hear you done well in America.
Oh, fairly well.
I suppose you saw me brother Andy out there.
Oh, no. It's such a big place that looking for a man there is like looking for a needle in a bunch of hay. They tell me he's a great man out there.
So he is, God be praised. Where's your father?
He's inside in the office, Mr. Haffigan, with Barney Dorn and Father Dempsey.
Is there anything wrong with old Matt?
No, he's the same as ever. Why?
He's not the same to me. He used to be very civil to Master Larry, a deal too civil, I think. Now he's as surly as a standoff as a bear.
No, sure, he's bought his farm in the land purchase. He's independent now.
It's made a great change, Larry. You'd hardly know the old tenants now. You'd think it was a liberty to speak to them, some of them.
I wonder what he wants to see Corny for. He hasn't been here since he paid the last of his old rent. And then he as good as threw it in Corny's face, I thought.
Oh, no wonder. Of course, they all hated us like the devil. Oh, I've seen them in that office telling my father what a fine boy I was and plastering him with compliments, with your honour here and your honour there, and all the time their fingers were itching to beat his throat.
Then why should they want to hurt poor Corny? It was he that got Matt the lease of his farm and stood up for him as an industrious, decent man.
Was he industrious? That's remarkable, you know, in an Irishman.
Industrious. That man's industry used to make me sick even as a boy. I tell you, the Irish peasant's industry is not human. It's worse than the industry of a coral insect. An Englishman has some sense about working. He never does more than he can help. And hard enough to get him to do that without scamping. But an Irishman will work as if he died the moment he stopped. That man, Matthew Haffigan, and his brother Andy made a farm out of a patch of stones on the hillside, cleared it and dug with their own naked hands and bought their first spade when they were there with their first crop of potatoes. Talk of making 2 blades of wheat grow where one grew before. Those men made a whole field of wheat grow where not even a furze bush had ever got its head up between the stones.
That was magnificent, you know. Only a great race is capable of producing such men.
Oh, such fools, you mean?
Oh.
What's the good of it then? To them? The moment they'd done it, the landlord put a rent of £5 a year on them and turned them out because they couldn't pay it.
Why couldn't they pay as well as Billy Byrne that took it after them?
You know very well that Billy Byrne never paid it. He only offered to get possession. He never paid it.
Well, that was because Andy Haffigan hurt him with a brick so that he was never the same again. Andy had to run away to America for it.
Well, who can blame him, Miss Doyle? Who can blame him?
Oh, rubbish. What's the good of a man that's starved out of a farm, murder a man that's starved into it? Would you have done such a thing?
Yes, I would have shot the confounded landlord, wrung the neck of the damned agent, blown the farm up with dynamite, and Dublin Castle along with it.
Oh, yes. You'd have done great things, and a fat lot of good would have come out of it too. That's an Englishman all over. Make bad laws and give away all the land. And then when your economic incompetence produces its natural and inevitable results, get virtuously indignant and kill the people that carry out your laws.
Ah, sure, never mind him, Mr. Broadbent. It doesn't matter anyhow, because there's hardly any landlords left, and there'll soon be none at all.
On the contrary, there'll soon be nothing else. And the Lord help Ireland then.
You're never satisfied, Larry. Come on, Alana, make the paste for the pie. We can leave them to their talk. They don't want us.
Oh, Miss Doyle, really, really. Larry,
What is it?
I got drunk last night and proposed to Miss Riley.
You what?
What are you laughing at?
So I don't know. It's just the sort of thing an Irishman laughs at. She accepted you.
I shall never forget that with the chivalry of her nation, though I was utterly at her mercy, she refused me.
Oh, that was extremely improvident of her. But look here, when were you drunk? You were sober last night when you came back from the Round Tower with her.
No, Larry, I was drunk, I'm sorry to say. I had 2 tumblers of punch. She had to lead me home. You must have noticed it.
I did not.
She did.
Oh, well, may I ask how long it took you to come to business? You can hardly have known her for more than a couple of hours.
I'm afraid it was hardly a couple of minutes. She was not here when I arrived, and I saw her for the first time at the tower.
Well, you're a nice infant to be let loose on this country. Fancy the poaching going to your head like that.
Well, to my head, I think. I have no headache. And I could speak distinctly. No, poaching goes to the heart, not to the head. But what ought I to do?
Nothing. What need you do?
Well, there's a rather delicate moral question involved. The point is, was I drunk enough to not be morally responsible for my proposal? Or was I sober enough to be bound to repeat it now that I am undoubtedly sober?
I should see a little more of her before deciding.
No, that would not be right. That would not be fair. I'm either under a moral obligation or I am not. I wish I knew how drunk I was.
Well, you're evidently in a state of blithering sentimentality anyhow.
That is true, Larry. I admit it. Her voice has the most extraordinary effect on me. That Irish voice.
Yes, I know. When I first went to London, I very nearly proposed to walk out with a waitress in an aerated bread shop because her Whitechapel accent was so distinguished, so touching, so pretty.
Well, Miss Riley is not a waitress, is she?
Oh, come, the waitress was a very nice girl.
You think every Englishwoman is an angel. You really have a coarse taste in that way, Larry. Miss Riley is one of the finer types, a type rare in England, except perhaps in the best of the aristocracy.
Aristocracy be blowed. Do you know what Nora eats?
Eats? What do you mean?
Breakfast. Tea and bread and butter with the occasional rasher and an egg on special occasions, say on her birthday. Dinner in the middle of the day, one course and nothing else. In the evening, tea with bread and butter again. You compare her with your Englishwoman who will wolf down from 3 to 5 meals a day, and naturally you'll find her a sylph. The difference is not a difference of type. The difference between a woman who eats not wisely but too well and a woman who eats too wisely but too little.
Larry, you disgust me. You're a damn fool.
Steady.
Well, I think we all met last night.
I hadn't that pleasure.
To be sure, Barney, I forgot. Mr. Doran, he owns that fine mill you noticed from the car.
I'm most happy, Mr. Doran. Very pleased indeed.
How's yourself, Larry?
Finally, thank you. No need ask you.
Give Father Dempsey a chair, Larry. Sit down, Barney, will you? And you, Matt?
Do you think it'll bear two, Larry?
Oh, perhaps not. Don't move, I'll stand.
Sit down. Now, perhaps you'll explain, Father Dempsey.
No, go on you. The church has no politics.
Were you ever thinking of going into Parliament at all, Larry?
Me?
Yes, you. Why not?
So I'm afraid my ideas would not be popular enough.
I don't know that. Do you, Barney?
There's too much blather and misguided in Irish politics. A deal too much.
Well, what about the present member? Is he going to retire?
No, I don't know that he is.
Well, then...
We've had enough of his foolish talk against landlords. What call is he to talk about the land that never was outside of a city office in his life?
We're tired of him. He doesn't know where to stop. Every man can't own land, and some men must own it to employ them. It was all very well when solid men like Doran and me and Matt were kept from owning land. But what man in his senses ever wanted to give land to Patsy Farrell and you like him?
But surely Irish landlordism was accountable for what Mr. Haffigan suffered.
Never mind what I suffered. I know what I suffered without you telling me. But did I ever ask for more than the farm I made with my own hands? Tell me that, Corny Doyle. And you know that knows? Was I fit for the responsibility or was I not? Am I to be compared to Patsy Farrell that doesn't hardly know his right hand from his left? What did he ever suffer? I'd like to know.
That's just what I say. I wasn't comparing you to your disadvantage.
What did you mean by talk about giving him land?
Easy, Matt, easy. You're like a bear with a sore back.
And who are you? To offer to teach me manners.
No, Matt, none of that. How often have I told you you're too ready to take offense where none is meant? You don't understand. Corny Doyle is saying just what you want to have said. Go on, Mr. Doyle. Never mind him.
Well, if me land is to be given to Patsy in his life, I'm going out of this.
Who's going to give your land to Patsy, you fool, you?
Easy, Barney, easy. I told you, Matthew Haffigan, that Corny Doyle was saying nothing against you. I'm sorry your priest's word is not good enough for you. I'll go sooner than stay to make you commit a sin against the church. Good morning, gentlemen.
There, serve you damn well right, you cantankerous old noodle.
I don't say that, Father Dempsey. I never had a thought against your holy church. I know I'm a bit hasty when I think about the land. I ask your pardon for it.
Very well. I'll overlook it this time. Now sit down, Matt. Go on, Mr. Doyle. We can make allowances. Go on.
Well, you see how it is, Larry. Round about here, we've got the land at last. And we want no more government meddling. We want a new class of men in Parliament, and one that knows that's the farmer, the real backbone of the country, and doesn't care a snap of his fingers for the shotting or the riffraff in the towns, or for the foolishness of the labourers.
Aye, and that can afford to live in London and pay his own way until Home Rule comes, instead of wanting subscriptions and the like.
Yes, that's a good point, Barney. When too much money goes to politics, it's the church that has to starve for it. A member of Parliament ought to be a help to the church instead of a burden on it.
Well, here's a chance for you, Tom. What do you say?
Oh, I have no claim whatever to the seat. Besides, I'm a Saxon.
What?
A Saxon, an Englishman.
An Englishman? Bedad, I never heard it called that before.
If I might make so bold, Father, I wouldn't say but an English Protestant might have a more independent mind about the land, and be less afeard to speak out about it than an Irish Catholic.
But sure, Larry's as good as English, aren't you, Larry?
You put me out of your head, Father, once and for all.
Why?
I have strong opinions which wouldn't suit you.
Oh, is it still Larry, the bold Fenian?
No, the bold Fenian is older and a possibly foolisher man.
What does it matter to us what your opinions are? You know that Father's bought his farm just the same as Matt here in Barney's Mill. All we ask now is to be let alone. You've done nothing against that, have you?
Certainly I have. I don't believe in letting anybody or anything alone.
What do you mean, you young fool? Here, I've got you for the offer of a good seat in Parliament, and now you think yourself mighty smart to stand there and talk foolishness to me. Will you take it or leave it?
Very well, I'll take it with pleasure if you'll give it to me.
Well, you couldn't. Why could you say so at once? It's a good job if you've made up your mind at last.
Stop a bit, stop a bit.
It's not because he's your son that he's to get the seat, Father Dempsey. Wouldn't you think we'll to ask him what he means about the land?
I'll tell you, Matt. I've always thought it was a stupid, lazy, good-for-nothing sort of thing to leave the land in the hands of the old landlords without calling them to a strict account for the use they made of it and the condition of the people on it. I could see for myself that they thought of nothing but what they could get out of it to spend in England, and that they mortgaged till hardly one of them owed his own property or could have afforded to keep it up decently if he wanted to. But I'll tell you plump and plain, Matt, if anybody thinks things will be any better now that the land is handed over to a lot of little men like you, without calling you into account either, you're mistaken.
What call have you to look down on me? I suppose you think you're everybody's because your father was a land agent.
What call have you to look down on Patsy Farrell? I suppose you think you're everybody because you own a few fields?
Was Patsy Farrell ever ill-used as I was ill-used? Tell me that.
He will be if ever he gets into your power the way you were in the power of your old landlord. Do you think because you're poor and ignorant and half crazy with toiling and moiling morning, noon and night that you'll be any less greedy and oppressive to them that have no land than old Nicholas Strange, who was an educated, travelled gentleman that would never have been as tempted as hard by £300 as you'd be by 5 shillings? Nick was too high above Patsy Farrell to be jealous of him, but you, that are only one little step above him, will die sooner than let him come up that step. And well, you know it.
Let me out of this. I'm going, I say. I got my coat, Barney Doran.
Sit down, you old Omadon, you. Don't you want to stay and vote again him?
Matt, no. Come. What's all this about Patsy Farrell? Why need you fall out about him?
Because it was by using Patsy's poverty to undersell England in the markets of the world that we drove England to ruin Ireland. And she'll ruin us again the moment we lift our heads from the dust if we trade in cheap labor and serve us right too. If I go into Parliament, I'll try to get an act to prevent any of you from giving Patsy less than £1 a week, or working him harder than you'd work a horse that cost you 50 guineas.
What?
Hold on! God save us, the boy's mad.
Oh, well, how is any man to marry and live a decent life unless?
Hey, man alive, where have you been living all these years? And what have you been dreaming of? Why, some of these honest men here can't make that much out of the land for themselves, much less give it to a labourer.
Well, then let them make room for those who can. Is Ireland never going to have a chance? First, she's given to the rich, and now they've gorged on her flesh. Her bones are to be flung to the poor that can do nothing but suck the marrow out of her. If we can't have men of honour own the land, let's have men of ability. And if we can't have men of ability, let's at least have men with capital. Anybody's better than Matt, who has neither honour, nor ability, nor capital, nor anything but brute labour and greed in him. Heaven help them.
Well, we're not all frustrated old datterers like Matt. Are we, Matt?
Oh, for modern industrial purposes, you might as well be, Barney. You're all children. The big world that I belong to has gone past you and left you. Anyhow, we Irishmen were never made to be farmers. We'll never do anything good at it. We're like the Jews. The Almighty gave us brains and bid us farm them, and then leave the clay to the worms alone.
Oh, is it Jews you want to make of us? I must catechize you a bit myself, I think. The next thing you'll be proposing is to repeal the disestablishment of the so-called Irish Church.
Yes, why not?
He's a turncoat.
Oh, St. Peter, the rock on which our church was built, was crucified head downwards for being a turncoat.
And that's true. You hold your tongue as befits your ignorance, Matt Haffigan, and trust your priest to deal with this young man. Now, Larry Doyle, whatever the blessed St. Peter was crucified for, it was not for being a Protestant. Are you one?
No, I'm a Catholic, intelligent enough to see that the Protestants are never more dangerous to us than when they are free from all alliances with the state. The so-called Irish Church is stronger today than it ever was.
Father Dempsey, will you tell him that my mother's aunt was shot and killed dead in the streets of Roscoff and be a soldier in the tithe war? He wants to put the ties on us again.
Oh, put ties on you again? Did the ties ever come off you? Was your land any dearer to you when you paid the tithe to the parson than when you paid it the same money to Nicholas Strange as rent and he handed it over to the church sustentation fund? Will you always be duped by acts of parliament that can change nothing but the necktie of the man that picks your pocket? I'll tell you what I'll do with you, Matt Haffigan. I'd make you pay tithes to your own church. I want the church, the Catholic Church, established in Ireland. That's what I want. Do you think that I, brought up to regard myself as a son of a great and holy church, can bear to see her begging her bread from the ignorance and superstition of men like you? I would have her as high above worldly want as I would have her above worldly pride and ambition. And I would have Ireland compete with Rome itself for the chair of St. Peter and the citadel of the church. For Rome, in spite of all the blood of martyrs, is pagan at heart to this day, while Ireland, in Ireland, the people is the church, and the church is the people.
Please, man, you're worse than Mad Peter Keegan himself.
You amaze me, Larry. Who would have thought of your coming out like this? But, much as I appreciate your really brilliant eloquence, I implore you not to desert the great liberal principle of disestablishment.
I am not a liberal. Heaven forbid. A disestablished church is worse a tyranny a nation can groan under.
Don't be paradoxical, Larry. It really gives me a pain in the stomach.
You'll soon find the truth of it here. I'll look at Father Dempsey. He is disestablished. He has nothing to hope or fear from the state. And the result is that he's the most powerful man in Roscoff. A member for Roscoff would shake in his shoes if Father Dempsey looked crooked at him. Oh, look at yourself. Would you defy the established Archbishop of Canterbury? You would defy the established Archbishop of Canterbury 10 times a day, but catch you daring to say a word that would shock a nonconformist, not you. The Conservative Party today is the only one that's not priest-ridden. excuse the expression, Father, because it's the only one that has established its church and can prevent a clergyman becoming a bishop if he's not a statesman as well as a churchman.
Young man, you'll not be the member for Roscoff, but there's more in your head than the comb will take out.
I'm sorry to disappoint you, Father, but I told you it would be of no use. And now I think the candidate had better retire and leave you to discuss his successor.
What sort of a fellow is he? Is he at all?
He's a clever lad. There's the making of a man in him yet.
Do you mean to say, that you'll put him into Parliament to bring back Nicholas Strange on me, to put ties on me, to rob me for the likes of Patsy Farrell because he's Corny Doyle's only son?
Oh, hold your wish. Who's going to send him into Parliament? Maybe you'd like us to send you there to threat him to a little your anxiety about that dirty little potato patch of yours.
Am I to be told this after all me sufferings?
Oh, I'm tired of your sufferings. We've been hearing nothing else ever since we was children but sufferings. We've been, when it wasn't yours, it was somebody else's. And when it was nobody else's, it was old Ireland's. How the devil are we to live on one another's sufferings?
Yeah, that's a true word, Bonnie Dorn. Only your tongue's a little too familiar with the devil. If you think a little more of the sufferings of the blessed saints, Matt, and a little less of your own, you'd find the way shorter from your farm to heaven. There now, that's enough. We know you mean well, and I'm not angry with you.
Surely, Mr. Haffigan, you can see the simple explanation of all this. My friend Larry Doyle is a most brilliant speaker, but he's a Tory, an ingrained, old-fashioned Tory.
How do you make that out, if I might ask you, Mr. Broadbent?
Well, you know, Mr. Doyle, there's a strong dash of Toryism in the Irish character. Larry himself says that the great Duke of Wellington was the most typical Irishman that ever lived. Of course, that's an absurd paradox, but there's still a great deal of truth in it. Now, I'm a liberal, and you know the great principles of the Liberal Party. Peace.
Hear, hear.
Thank you. Retrenchment.
What might retrenchment mean now?
It means an immense reduction in the burden of the rates and taxes.
That's right. That's right, sir.
And, of course, reform.
Of course.
Oh, what does reform mean, sir? Does it mean alter anything that's as it is now?
It means, Mr. Haffigan, maintaining those reforms which have already been conferred on humanity by the Liberal Party and trusting for future developments to the free activity of a free people on the basis of those reforms.
That's right. No more meddling. We're all right now. All we want is to be left alone.
What about home rule?
Well, I really cannot tell you what I feel about home rule without using the language of hyperbole.
Oh, saving Father Dempsey's presence, eh?
Quite so. Yes. All I can say is that as an Englishman, I blush for the Union. It is the blackest stain on our national history. I look forward to the time, and it cannot be far distant, gentlemen, because humanity is looking forward to it and insisting on it with no uncertain voice. I look forward to the time when an Irish legislature shall arise once more on the emerald pasture of College Green and the Union Jack, that detestable symbol of decadent imperialism, be replaced by a flag as green as the island over which it waves. A flag on which we shall ask for England only a modest quartering in memory of our great party and of the immoral name of our grand old leader.
That's the style, begob.
More power to you, sir.
Well, I shall leave you now, gentlemen, to your deliberations. I should like to have enlarged on the services rendered by the Liberal Party to the religious faith of the great majority of people of Ireland, but I shall content myself with saying that, in my opinion, you should choose no representative who, no matter what his personal creed may be, is not an ardent supporter of freedom of conscience and is not prepared to prove it by contributions as lavish as his means will allow to the great and beneficent work which you, Father Dempsey, are doing for the people of Roscoff. Nor should the lighter but still most important question of the sports of the people be forgotten. The local cricket club.
What?
Nobody plays bat and ball here, if that's what you mean.
Well, let us say quotes. I saw two men, I think, last night. But after all, these are questions of detail. The main thing is that your candidate, whoever he may be, shall be a man of some means, able to help the locality instead of burdening it. And if he were a countryman of my own, the moral effect on the House of Commons would be immense, tremendous. Pardon my saying these few words. Nobody feels their impertinence more than I do. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What do you think, Father Dempsey?
Well, he hasn't much sense, God help him. But for the matter of that, neither has our present member.
Mushy, he's good enough for Parliament. What is there to do but gas a bit and chivvy the government and vote for the Irish party?
He's the queerest Englishman I've ever met. When he opened the paper this morning, the first thing he saw was that an English expedition had been bet a little battle in ninjas somewhere, and he was as pleased as Punch. I told him that if he'd been alive when the news of Waterloo came, he'd have died of grief over it. But Dad, I don't think he's quite right in his head now.
Divil a matter if he has plenty of money. He'll do for us right enough.
Did you mind what he said about retrenchment? That was very good, I thought.
You might find out from Larry, Corny, what his means are. God forgive us all. It's poor work spoiling the Egyptians, though we have good warrant for it. So I'd like to know how much spoil there is before I commit myself.
I set my mind on Larry himself as the seat, but I suppose it can't be helped.
Well, the boy's young yet, and he has a head on him. Goodbye, all.
I must be going to look at me bold Englishman shaking hands with Father Dempsey for all the world like a candidate on election day. And look at Father Dempsey giving him a squeeze and a wink as much to say, it's all right, me boy. You watch him shaking hands with me too. He's waiting for me. I'll tell him he's as good as elected.
Come in with me, Martin. I think I'll sell you the pig after all. Come in and wet the bar again.
I'm afraid I can't afford the price, sir.
Well, what has happened?
I think I've done the trick this time. I just gave them a bit of straight talk, and it went home. They were greatly impressed. Every one of those men believes in me and will vote for me when the question of selecting a candidate comes up. After all, whatever you say, Larry, they like an Englishman. They feel they can trust him, I suppose.
Oh, they've transferred the honor to you, have they?
Well, it was a pretty obvious move, I should think. You know, those fellows have plenty of shrewdness in spite of their Irish oddity. Oh, by the way, Hudson.
Yes, sir.
I want you to be rather particular as to how you treat the people here.
I haven't treated any of them yet, sir. If I was to accept all the treats they offered me, I shouldn't be able to stand at this present moment, sir.
Well, don't be too standoffish, you know, Hudson. I should like you to be popular. If it costs anything, I'll make it up to you. It doesn't matter if you get a bit upset at first. They'll like you all the better for it.
Yeah, I'm sure you're very kind, sir. But it don't seem to matter to me whether they like me or not. I'm not going to stand for Parliament here, sir.
Well, I am. Now do you understand?
Oh, I beg pardon, sir. I'm sure. I understand, sir.
That's you'll drive the pig over this evening. Matt, goodbye.
I must thank you very particularly, Mr. Haffigan, for your support this morning. I value it because I know that the real heart of a nation is the class that you represent, the yeomanry.
The yeomanry?
Take care, Tom. In Roscoff, a yeoman means a sort of orange bassy bazook. In England, Matt, they call a freehold farmer a yeoman.
I don't need to be instructed by you, Larry Doyle. Some people think no one knows anything but themselves. Of course I'd know a gentleman like you would not compare me to the yeomanry. My own grandfather was flogged in the streets of Athenmullet by them when they put a gun in the thatch of his house, and then they went and found it there. But bad cess to them.
Well, then you're not the first martyr of your family, Mr. Haffigan.
They turned me out at my farm. I made out of the stones a little Roscoff and a hill with me own hands.
I've heard about it, and my blood still boils at the thought. Watson!
Yes, sir.
Watson, this gentleman's sufferings should make every Englishman think. It is want of thought rather than want of heart that allows such iniquities to disgrace society.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'll be going. Good
You
morning.
have-
Speak kindly, sir.
You have some distance to go, Mr. Haffigan. Will you allow me to drive you home?
Oh, sure. It'd be trouble in your honor.
I insist. It would give me the greatest pleasure, I assure you. My car is in the stable. I can get it round in 5 minutes.
Well, sir, if you wouldn't mind, we could bring the pig I've just bought from Corny.
Certainly, Mr. Haffigan. It will be quite delightful to drive with a pig in the car. I shall feel quite like an Irishman. Watson, stay with Mr. Haffigan. Give him a hand with the pig if necessary. Come, Larry, help me.
Look here, Tom. Oh, here confound it.
And are you the Valley?
The Valley? Oh, I follow. Yeah, yes, I'm Mr. Broadbent's valet.
You have an easy time of it. You look pretty sleek. Look at me. Do I look sleek?
I wish I had your health. You look as hard as nails. I suffer from an excess of uric acid.
What sort of a disease is uric acid? Did you ever suffer from injustice and starvation? That's the Irish disease. It's easy for you to talk of suffering and you living on the fat of the land with money wrung from us.
What's wrong with you, old chap? Has anybody been doing anything to you?
Anything to me? Did your English master say that the blood bled in him, the blood biled in him to hear the way they put a rent on me for the farm I paid with me own hands and turned me out of it to give it to Billy Byrne?
Oh, Tom Broadbent's blood boils pretty easy over anything that happens after his own country. Don't you be taken in by my old man, Petty.
Paddy yourself! How dare you call me Paddy?
You just keep your hair on and listen to me. You Irish people are too well off. That's what's the matter with you. You talk of your rotten little farm because you made it by chucking a few stones down a hill. Well, what price my grandfather, I should like to know, that fitted up a first-class shop and built up a first-class drapery business in London by 60 years' work, and then was chucked out of it on his head at the end of his lease without a penny for his goodwill. You'll talk of evictions, that can't be moved until you've run up 18 months' rent. I once ran up 4 weeks in Lambeth when I went out of a job in winter. They took the door off its hinges and the window out of its sashes on me and gave my wife pneumonia. I'm a widower now. God, when I think of the things the Englishman has to put up with, and here you Irish ailing about your silly little grievances, and see the way you make it worse for as the rotten wages you'll come over and take and the rotten places you'll sleep in. I feel as I could just take the old bloomin' British island and make you a present of it, just to let you find out what real hardship's like.
Do you have the face to set up England against Ireland for injustice and wrongs and distress and suffering?
Oh, chuck it, Paddy. Chase it. You don't know what hardship is over here. All I can tell you, all you know is that about it. You take the biscuit that you do. I'm a home ruler, I am. Do you know why?
You know yourself?
Yes, I do. It's because I want a little attention paid to my own country, and that'll never be as long as you chaps are all at Westminster as if nobody mattered but your own bloomin' selves. Send them all back to Connaught. As good old English Cranwell said, I'm just sick of Ireland. Let it go. Cut the cable. Make it a present to Germany to keep the old Kaiser busy for a while and give poor old England a chance. That's what I say.
Take care we don't cut the cable ourselves someday, bad scram to you. And tell me this, have you any coercion acts in England? Have you any removables? Have you Dublin Castle to suppress every newspaper that takes the part of your own country?
We can behave ourselves without such things.
But Dad, you're right. It'd only be wasted time to muzzle a sheep. Here, Oh, where's my pig? God forgive me for talking to a poor, ignorant creature like you.
You pig'll have a rare doing in that car, Petty. 40 mile an hour down that rocky line will strike it pretty pink, you bet.
How can't you tell a reasonable lie when you're about it? What horse can go 40 mile an hour?
Horse? Well, you silly old rotter. It's not a horse, it's a motor. Do you suppose Tom Broadbent would go himself to fetch a horse?
Holy Moses. Don't tell me it's the engine he wants to take me in.
What else?
You sold to Morris Kelly. Why didn't you tell me that before? The devil in engine will get me on this day. Oh, murder! It's coming after me. I hear the puff, puff, puff of it.
Oh, where's Mr. Haffigan? Is he going for the pig?
Bolted, sir. Afraid of the motor, sir.
Oh, that's very tiresome. Did he leave any message?
He was in too great a hurry, sir. He started to run home, sir, and left his pig behind him.
Left the pig? Well, then it's all right. The pig's the thing. The pig will win over every Irish heart to me. We'll take the pig home to Haffigan's farm in the motor. It will have a tremendous effect. Hudson.
Yes, sir.
You think you could collect a crowd to see the motor?
Well, I'll try, sir.
Thank you, Hudson. Do.
Once more, Tom, will you listen to me?
Oh, rubbish. I tell you, it'll be all right.
Oh, only this morning you confessed how surprised you were to find that the people here showed no sense of humor.
Yes. Yes, their sense of humor is in abeyance. I noticed it the moment we landed. Think of that in a country where every man is a born humorist. Think of what that means. Larry, we are in the presence of a great national grief.
What's to grieve them?
I divined it, Larry. I saw it in their faces. Ireland has never smiled since her hopes were buried in the grave of Gladstone.
Oh, what's the use of talking to such a man? Now look here, Tom, be serious for a moment if you can.
Serious?
Yes, you. You say the Irish sense of humour is in abeyance. Well, if you drive through Roscoff in a motor car with Haffigan's pig, it won't stay in abeyance. Now, I warn you.
So much the better. I shall enjoy the joke myself more than any of them. Hello, Patsy. How are you?
Here I am, Your Honour.
Go and catch that pig and put it in the car. We're going to take it to Mr. Haffigan's. Come on, you old cracker. I'll show you how to win an Irish seat.
But Dad, if that pig gets a hold of the handle of the machine...
And curtain. All right, folks, let's take 10 and start again at 3:25.
Top ho.
Hmm?
And I've got to move something.
I'm about to get bounced here. This thing is, as soon as I do this, it'll knock me out. No, it didn't. Forget about that. Okay.
It was a long play. The sun has moved while I've been sitting here.
Beg your pardon?
This is a long play. The sun has moved dramatically while I've been sitting here. I have to move the umbrella. Oh, the trials, the trials. Life is so hard.
Yeah, it's all right for you people. It's pitch dark here.
So what's it, 6 hours later then? Yeah.
5. It's only 5. So it's 8, 15, 17, something like that. But the nights are drawing in, you know.
All right. All right. What hell, Bertie? Button? Hey, Nicholas.
Are you guys in the States going doolally over the funeral tomorrow?
Okay, who's here? Anybody?
Yeah.
I'm here.
Uh, David, I want more lines next time.
He wants more lines.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going to give away an afternoon for this sort of thing, I really want, something to do. Sit around and wait for an entrance.
well, wait a couple of weeks to 108. You'll have plenty of lines.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. I was asking if you guys in the States are going doolally over this bloody monarchist funeral, the way it seems to be going over here. I am getting tired of seeing BBC presenters wearing black ties.
Oh, no, we're loaded with it over here, believe me.
Oh, God's savior.
Are we, David? Where are you seeing it? I mean, I see it. I don't watch a lot of.
Money on MSNBC.
You're talking about which news? Whose?
MSNBC.
Oh, don't watch that. I haven't seen, but I tend to watch BBC and CNN, so I haven't seen that much of it. It does seem momentous. I mean, I don't know much about her, but a woman who reigned for, was it 70 years?
Yep.
Yeah,
on all the broadcast stations, it's on all the time.
Yeah.
And
It's like the lead news story.
and the stuff that same guy I mentioned, Fareed Zakaria, I think it was last week, had a long piece about it. You can read it. It's in the Washington Post about what her contribution has been to the country and to the world. Fascinated to know if you agree, Angus, because you're there.
Yeah.
He was talking about how her reserve and her lack of emotional expressiveness and how that fits in with an old style of government that's completely gone in America. And what it contributes and how destructive it is to have the kind of social media let it all hang out thing that Trump and people like that have here.
There's a certain dignity associated with it, which is nice. But I was always a socialist, an atheist, and was sort of a Republican. But after the last week and a half, I've turned into a fairly rabid anti-royalist. The first day of mourning, when everything was shut down, you couldn't do anything except Prince Charles issued redundancy notices to all his staff in Clarence House. So, you couldn't do any shopping or anything, but people could be made redundant, thanks to him. Tomorrow, the food banks are closing. So people are allowed to go hungry tomorrow.
That's
Whoa.
Why are they doing that?
Why are they? Yeah, what's their rationale for that?
Everybody saying, "Oh, it's the royal funeral. Nobody's doing anything."
Wow. Okay, now you've won me over. Wow.
I was round the grocery store tonight trying to get some milk for tomorrow, but the shelves were all cleaned, and nothing's going to be open tomorrow.
Wait, when you say food banks, you mean food for the poor?
Yeah, which constitute an increasingly large number of the British population now.
Wow.
You're now finding that, with the rising cost of living, plus the fact that people's electricity and gas bills are going up fivefold, more and more people are being pushed into poverty. There are some companies that have introduced, they're trying not to call them food banks because it's embarrassing. They're calling them community support groups. And they will try and do it, but it's disgraceful.
It is. I'm sorry, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
There was
and also, if you look at it, Prince Andrew has been named as one of the people who will stand in for Prince Charles if he can't, King Charles, I should say, God help us, if he can't make it. So can you imagine that rabid sexual abuser being sent to open a children's hospital? I mean, please, let's be realistic about this. It's not good. It really is not.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I haven't watched any of the news. I didn't hear any of this.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
You know.
Well, we're no
And-
better off over here, believe me. We've got big
Yeah.
troubles.
Oh, yeah.
Hey.
Yes. Yeah. But the term Prince of Wales has actually been passed on to, well, I can't remember who's got the title now, but Prince of Wales, which Prince Charles had, was actually a title that was inherited after the English murdered and killed the last King of Wales, and the English took over Wales. And there is a certain amount of sentiment to say now would be a good time to drop that, you know.
Mm.
The Queen and the royal family have the right and do review any law that has been proposed by the government. And there are a number of occasions where they've stepped in and demanded changes because it would the new laws would have compromised some of their ability to run their estates in Scotland.
Angus, who is it that had the authority to close the food banks for the funeral?
They have, most of them have done it themselves because they're kowtowing to this awful, people are queuing for 3 hours, 24 hours, 2 days.
They're kowtowing to who?
To the general fervor in this country.
But who makes that decision? Oh, you said most of them
They
are
do
doing it
themselves.
privately.
They do it. Yeah, they've only done it themselves. Morrison's, which is a big supermarket chain, actually turned off the beeps on the scanning system, which created absolute chaos because people go in and try and scan their groceries. And now the thing doesn't go beep to let them know it's been scanned properly.
Oh God, that's really annoying.
Oh, it's so goddamn stupid,
But the places where people, that's a supermarket, the places where the people who have no money are going to get food.
They're going to be closed tomorrow.
And who?
They may not have people who can run things. There
Well,
may be
that's
people
true.
who,
Yeah,
they may just
That's-
not
that's
have
part of
staff
it.
available.
It's the feudalistic kowtowing system that is desperately offensive, and is.
So you think what I'm trying to get is they're kowtowing to the popularity of the royal family, not to the government, not to the government.
No. But the government's gone even worse, of course, now that our new prime minister, may she rot in hell, has taken the cap off the bonuses that bankers can get.
Oh, geez.
Dear.
Well, we know who supported her.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, right.
And she's filled her government with people who own shares in. There's a subtle attempt to turn the National Health Service private, and a lot of it's been sold off. I mean, something like 300 or 400 general practices in the country are now owned by American insurance companies. And, this is kind of not good. It's a sort
Trust
of
me,
major...
as somebody in the profession, it's far from good.
Oh, it is. I know.
I didn't know this. Damn.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know which companies?
I don't know which ones. You can research them.
Yeah.
There's one company that's bought about 300 general practices. It's
Well, shall we get on with it, ladies and
We need to
gentlemen?
go. Yeah,
Ladies?
yeah. Time to get going. Yes.
We can continue this discussion after.
Yeah. Probably when we're not on air.
All right. We're up to Act 4. The parlor in Cornelius Doyle's house. It communicates with the garden by a half-glazed door. The fireplace is at the other side of the room, opposite the door and windows, the architect not having been sensitive to drafts. The table, rescued from the garden, is in the middle, and at it sits Keegan, the central figure in a rather crowded apartment. Nora, sitting with her back to the fire, is at the end of the table, is playing backgammon across the corner with him, on his left hand. And Judy, a little farther back, sits facing the fire, knitting, with her feet on the fender. A little Keegan's right, and in front of the table and almost sitting on it, is Barney Doran. Half a dozen friends of his, all men, are between him and the open door, supported by others outside. In the corner behind him is the sofa of mahogany and horsehair, made up as a bed for Broadbent. Against the wall behind Keegan stands a mahogany sideboard. A door leading to the interior of the house is near the fireplace, behind Aunt Judy.
Laura, hold your noise, Barney. What is there to laugh at?
It's got its foot into the little wheel.
Have some sense. You're like a parcel of children. Nora, hit him a thump on the back. He'll have a fit.
Oh, friend, says he to the outside duels. I'm taking the gentleman that pays the rent for a drive.
Who did you mean by that?
They call a pig that in England. That's their notion of a joke.
God help them if they can joke no better than that.
Then,
oh, no, don't be telling it over and setting yourself off again, Barney.
You've told us 3 times, Mr. Doran.
Think of it.
Oh, then don't think of it, Helena.
There was Patsy Farrer in the back seat with the pig between his knees, and me bold English boy in front of the machinery. And Larry Doyle in the road starting the engine with a bed winch. At the first puff of it, the pig leapt out of its skin and bled Patsy's nose with a ring in its snout. Before Broadbent knew where he was, the pig was up his back and over into his lap, and bedad the poor beast to the credit to Corny's training of it, for it put the 4th speed, it put it into 4th speed with his right crubeen as if it was entered into the Gordon Bennett.
And Larry in front of it and all. It's nothing to laugh at, Mr. Doran.
Bedad, Miss Riley, Larry cleared 6 yards sideways at one jump if he cleared an inch, and he cleared 7. He'd have cleared 7 if Dolan's grandmother hadn't cotched him in her apron without intending to.
Oh, for shame, Barney, the poor old woman. And she was hurt before, too, when she slipped on the stairs.
Oh, bedad, Mum, she's hurt behind now, for Larry bowled her over like a skittle.
It's well the lad wasn't killed.
Oh, faith, it wasn't Larry we were thinking just then, with a pig taking the main street of Roscoff on market day at a mile a minute. The only thing Broadbent could get at was with the pig in front of him was a foot brake, and the pig's tail was under that. So that when he thought he was putting down on the brake, he was only squeezing the life out of the pig's tail. The more he put the brake on, the more the pig squealed and the faster he drove.
Why couldn't he throw the pig out into the road?
He couldn't stand up to it because he was spangled like between the seat and that thing that like a wheel on top of a stick between his knees.
Oh, Lord have mercy on us.
I don't know how you can laugh. Do you, Mr. Keegan?
Why not? There is danger, destruction, and torment. What more do we want to make us merry? Go on, Barney, the last drops of joy are not squeezed from the story yet. Tell us again how our brother was torn asunder.
Whose brother?
Mine.
He means the pig, Mr. Doran. You know his way.
Be that. I'm sorry for your poor brother, Mr. Keegan, but I recommend you to try him with a couple of fried eggs for your breakfast tomorrow. It was a case of Excelsior with that ambitious beast. For not content with jumping from the back seat into the front one, he jumped from the front one into the road in front of the car. And
everybody laughed.
Don't go over that again, please, Mr. Doran.
Every time the car went over the poor pig, there was a little left for me to anyone else to go over, except with a knife and fork.
Why didn't Mr. Broadbent stop the car when the pig was gone?
Stop the car? He might as well have tried to stop the mad bull. First, it went one way, and then it made fireworks of Molly Ryan's crockery stall, and then it slewed round and ripped 10-foot of wall out of the corner of the pound. Big gob, it just turned the town in two and set the whole damn market to blazes.
Sir,
Saving your presence, Miss Riley, and Mr. Keegan's there. And there, I won't say another word.
I'm surprised at you, Mr. Doran.
He has the devil's own luck, that Englishman anyway. But when they picked him up, he hadn't a scratch on him, barring what the pig did with his clothes. But Patsy had 2 fingers out of joint, but the smith pulled them straight for him. Oh, you never heard such a hullabaloo as there was. There was Molly crying, me Cheney, my beautiful Cheney, and old Matt shouting, me pig, and the pollers taking the number of the car, and not a man in the town able to speak for laughing.
it is hell. It is hell. Nowhere else could such a scene be a burst of happiness for the people.
Where's you laughing, boys? Here he is.
Oh, remember your behavior now.
I hope you've not all been anxious about me.
Oh, didn't we have, Mr. Broadbent? It's a mercy you weren't killed.
It's a mercy there's 2 bones you left holding together. How'd you escape at all? Well, I never thought I'd be so glad to see you safe and sound again. Not a man in the town would say less. Won't you come down to Doolan's and have a look around and take the shock off?
You're all really too kind, but the shock is quite passed off.
Never mind. Come along the same and tell us about it over a friendly glass.
May I say, just how deeply I feel the kindness with which I've been overwhelmed since my accident. I can truthfully declare that I'm glad it happened, because it has brought out the kindness and sympathy of the Irish character to an extent that I had no conception of.
Oh, sure.
All I can say is I wish I could drink to the health of every one of you.
Then come and do it.
No, I'm a teetotaler.
Since when?
Since this morning, Miss Doyle, I've had a lesson that I shall not forget. It may be that total abstinence has already saved my life, for I was astonished at the steadiness of my nerves when death stared me in the face today. So I will ask you to excuse me. Gentlemen, I hope the gravity of the peril through which we have all passed, for I know that the danger to the bystanders was as great as to the occupants of the car, will prove an earnest of closer and more serious relations between us in the future. We have had a somewhat agitating day. A valuable and innocent animal has lost its life. A public building has been wrecked. An aged and infirm lady has suffered an impact for which I feel personally responsible, though my old friend Mr. Lawrence Doyle unfortunately incurred the first effects of her very natural resentment. I greatly I greatly regret the damage to Mr. Patrick Farrell's fingers, and I have, of course, taken care that he shall not suffer pecuniarily by his mishap. I'm very glad to say that Patsy took it like an Irishman, and far from expressing any vindictive feeling, declared his willingness to break all his fingers and toes for me on the same terms. Patsy.
More power to Patsy.
Gentlemen, I feel at home in Ireland from the first. In every Irish breast I have found that spirit of liberty,
Here.
that instinctive mistrust of the government, that love of independence, that indignant sympathy with the cause of the oppressed nationalities abroad, and with the resolute assertion of personal rights at home, which is all but extinct in my own country. If it were legally possible, I should become a naturalized Irishman, and if it ever be my good fortune to represent an Irish constituency in Parliament, it shall be my first care to introduce a bill legalizing such an operation. I believe a large section of the Liberal Party would avail themselves of it. I do. Gentlemen, I've said enough. I have no right to address you at all on political subjects, and we must not abuse the warm-hearted Irish hospitality of Miss Doyle by turning her sitting room into a public meeting.
3 cheers for Tom Broadbent, the a future member for Roscoff. Hooray! Hooray!
Hooray!
Hooray!
Hooray!
Thank you from the bottom of my heart, my friends.
Take them away, Mr. Doran.
Well, good evening, Mr. Broadbent. And may you never regret the day you went driving with Haffigan's pig. Good evening, Miss Doyle.
It's up with his candidature. He really laughed out of the town.
Oh, no, he won't. He's not an Irishman. He'll never know they're laughing at him. And while they're laughing at him, he'll win the seat.
But he can't prevent the story getting about.
He won't want to. He'll tell it himself as one of the most providential episodes in the history of England and Ireland.
Oh, sure, he wouldn't make a fool of himself like that.
Are you sure he's such a fool after all, Aunt Judy? Suppose you had a vote. Which would you rather give it to? A man that told the story of Haffigan's pig, Barney Duran's way, or Broadbent's way?
Oh, faith, I wouldn't give it to a man at all. It's a few women they want in Parliament to stop their foolish blather.
Well, that's over. I must apologize for making that speech, Miss Doyle, but they like it, you know. Everything helps in electioneering.
I'd no notion you were such an orator, Mr. Broadbent.
Oh, it's only a knack. One picks it up on the platform. It stokes up their enthusiasm.
Oh, I forgot. You've not met Mr. Keegan. Let me introduce you.
Most happy to meet you, Mr. Keegan. I have heard of you, although I have not had the pleasure of shaking your hand before. And now may I ask you, for I value no man's opinion more, what do you think of my chances here?
Your chances, sir, are excellent. You will get into Parliament.
I hope so. I think so. You really think so? You are sure that you're not allowing your enthusiasm for our principles to get in the better of your judgment?
I have no enthusiasm for your principles, sir. You will get into Parliament because you want it to get into it so badly enough to be prepared to take the necessary steps to induce the people to vote for you. That is how people usually get into that fantastic assembly.
Yes, of course. Quite so. Yes. I think they will vote for me, eh? Yes?
Oh, Sarah, why shouldn't they? Look at the people they do vote for.
Now, that's true. That's very true. That's very true. When I see the windbags, the carpetbaggers, the charlatans, the fools and ignoramuses who corrupt the multitude by their wealth or seduce them by spouting balderdash to them, I cannot help thinking that an honest man with no humbug about him, who will talk straight common sense and take his stand on the solid ground of principle and public duty, must win his way with men of all classes.
Sir, there was a time in my ignorant youth when I should have called you a hypocrite.
A hypocrite?
Oh, I'm sure you don't think anything of that sort, Mr. Keegan.
Thank you, Miss Riley. Thank you.
We all have to stretch it a bit into the politics. What's the use of pretending we don't?
I hope I have said or done nothing that calls for any such observation, Miss Doyle. Mr. Doyle. If there is a vice I detest, or against which my whole public life has been a protest, it is the vice of hypocrisy. I would almost rather be inconsistent than insincere.
Do not be offended, sir. I know that you are quite sincere. There is a saying in the scripture which runs, so far as my memory in the scripture which runs, let not the right side of your brain know what the left side doeth. I learned at Oxford that this is the secret of the Englishman's strange power for making the best of both worlds.
Now, surely the text refers to our right and left hands. I'm somewhat surprised to hear that a member of your church quotes so essentially Protestant a document as the Bible, but at least you might quote it accurately.
Tom, with the best of intentions, you're making an ass of yourself. You don't understand Mr. Keegan's peculiar vein of humor.
Ah, it was only your delightful Irish humor, Mr. Keegan. Of course. How stupid of me. I'm so sorry. John Bull's wits are still slow, you see. Besides, calling me a hypocrite was too big a joke to swallow all at once, you know.
You must also allow for the fact that I am mad.
Oh, don't talk like that, Mr. Keegan.
Not at all. Only a whimsical Irishman.
Are you really mad, Mr. Keegan?
Oh, Larry, how could you ask him such a thing?
I don't think Mr. Keegan minds. What's a true version of the story of the black man you confessed on his deathbed?
What story have you heard about that?
Well, I am informed that when the devil came back for the black heathen, he took off your head and turned it 3 times around before putting it on again, and that your head's been turned ever since.
Larry.
Well, that is not quite what occurred. I heard that a black man was dying and that the people were afraid to go near him. When I went to the place, I found an elderly Hindu who told me one of those tales of unmerited misfortune, of cruel ill luck, of relentless persecution by destiny, which sometimes wither the commonplaces of consolation on the lips of a priest. But this man did not complain of his misfortunes. They were brought upon him, he said, by sins committed in a former existence. Then, without a word of comfort from me, he died with a clear-eyed resignation that my most earnest exhortations have rarely produced in a Christian, and left me sitting there by his bedside with the mystery of this world suddenly revealed to me.
That is a remarkable tribute to the liberty of conscience enjoyed by the subjects of our Indian Empire.
And no doubt, but may we venture to ask, what is the mystery of this world?
Oh, this world, sir, is very clearly a place of torment and penance, a place where the fool flourishes and the good and wise are hated and persecuted, a place where men and women torture one another in the name of love, where children are scourged and enslaved in the name of parental duty and education, where the weak in body are poisoned and mutilated in the name of healing, and the weak in character are put to the horrible torture of imprisonment, not for hours, but for years, in the name of justice. It is a place where the hardest toil is a welcome refuge from the horror and tedium of pleasure, and where charity and good works are done only for hire to ransom the soul of the spoiler and the sybarite. Now, sir, there is only one place of horror and torment known to my religion, and that place is hell. And therefore it is plain to me that this earth of ours must be hell, and that we are all here, as the Indian revealed to me. Perhaps he was sent to reveal it to me, to expiate crimes committed by us in a former existence.
Heaven save us! What a thing to say.
Yeah, it's a queer world, that's certain.
Your idea is a very clever one, Mr. Keegan. Really, most brilliant. I should never have thought of it, but it seems to me, if I may say so, that you are overlooking the fact that of all the evils you describe, some are absolutely necessary for the preservation of society, and others are encouraged only when the Tories are in office.
I expect you were a Tory in a former existence, and that's why you're here.
Never, Larry, never. But leaving politics out of the question, I find the world quite good enough for me. Rather a jolly place, in fact.
You are satisfied?
As a reasonable man, yes, I see no evils in the world, except, of course, natural evils that cannot be remedied by freedom, self-government, and English institutions. I think so not because I am an Englishman, but as a matter of common sense.
You feel at home in the world, then?
Of course, don't you?
No.
Try phosphorus pills. I always take them when my brain is overworked. I'll give you the address on Oxford Street.
Miss Doyle, my wandering fit has come on me. Will you excuse me?
To be sure. You know, you can come in and out as you like.
We can finish the game some other time, Miss Riley.
No, I'm out with you. I was too wicked in a former existence to play backgammon with a good man like you.
Whisht, child. Don't set him back on that again.
Look, when I look at you, I think that perhaps Ireland is only purgatory after all.
Go along with you.
Has he a vote?
Yes, and there's lots of votes, and the way he tells them.
Good evening, Mr. Broadbent. You have set me thinking. Thank you.
No, really? You find that contact with English ideas is stimulating, eh?
Oh, I am never tired of hearing you talk, Mr. Broadbent.
Oh, come.
Oh, yes, I assure you, you're an extremely interesting man.
Oh, what a nice chap. What an intelligent, interesting fellow. By the way, I'd better have a wash.
He gets very queer today. He has his mad fit on him.
I wouldn't say that he's right after all. It's a contrary world. Why would you be such a fool as to let him take the seat in Parliament from you?
He will take more than that from me before he's done here.
I wish he'd never set foot in my house, bad luck to his fat face. To think he'd lend me £300 on the farm, Larry. But I'm so hard up, it seems a waste of money not to mortgage it now. It's me own.
I can lend you £300 on it.
No. I wasn't putting in for that. When I die and leave you the farm, I should like to be able to feel that it was all me own and not half yours to start with. Now I'll take me oath, Barney Dorn. Going to ask Broadbent to lend me £500 on the mill to put in a new wheel for the old one will hardly hold together. And Haffigan can't sleep in Covington, that corner of land at the foot of his meadow that belongs to Dolan, and he'll have to mortgage to buy it. I may as well be first as last. Do you think Broadbent will lend me a little?
I'm quite sure he will.
Is he as ready as that? Would he lend me 500, do you think?
He'll lend you more than the land will be worth to you. So heaven's sake, be prudent.
All right, my son. I'll be careful. I'm going into the office for a bit.
Oh, as if he hadn't seen enough of Borrian when he was an agent, without beginning Borrian himself. Oh, I'll borry him, so I will.
I suppose it didn't seem very long to you,
Okay. What did?
the 18 years you've been away.
Oh, that. No, it seems hardly more than a week. I've been so busy, so little time to think.
I've had nothing else to do but think.
Well, that was bad for you. Why didn't you give it up? Why did you stay here?
Because nobody sent for me to go somewhere else, I suppose. That's why.
Yes, one does stick frightfully to the same place unless some external force comes and routs one out. And how you been all this time?
Quite well, thank you.
That's right.
Is that all you have to say to me, Larry?
Well, what is there to say? Yes, Sissy, we know each other so well.
Yes, of course we do. I wonder you come back at all.
I couldn't help it. Tom made me. I had sort of dread of returning to Ireland. I felt somehow that my luck would turn if I came back. And now here I am, none the worse.
Perhaps it's a little dull for you.
No, I haven't exhausted the interest of strolling about the old places and remembering and romancing about them.
Oh, you do remember the places then?
Of course. They have associations.
I suppose so.
Yes. I can remember particular spots where I had long fits of thinking about the countries I meant to get to when I escaped from Ireland. America and London and sometimes Rome in the East.
Was that all you used to be thinking about?
Well, there was precious little else to think about here, dear Nora, except sometimes the sunset and when one gets maudlin and calling the Ireland Éireann and imagined one was remembering the days of old and so forth.
Well, did you ever get a letter I wrote you last February?
Oh, yes, I really did intend to answer it, but I haven't had a moment, and I knew that you wouldn't mind. See, I'm so afraid of boring you that my writing about my affairs that you won't understand and that people don't know. Yet what else have I to write about? I begin a letter and I tear it up. The fact is, as fond as we are of one another, Nora, we have so little in common. I mean, of course, the things one can put in a letter, the correspondences have to become the hardest of hard work.
Yes, it's hard for me to know anything about you if you never tell me anything.
Nora, a man can't sit down and write his life day by day when he's tired enough of having lived it.
I'm not blaming you.
You seem rather out of spirits. You haven't got neuralgia, have you?
No.
I get a touch of it sometimes when I'm below par. Yes, yes. Those summer smiles on here forever, though not a leaf falls from a tree, tell England I'll forget her never. A wind that blows across the sea, tell England I'll forget her never. A wind that blows across the sea. No, I'm afraid I'm boring you, Nora, though you're too kind to say so.
Are you wanting to get back to England already?
No, not at all, not at all.
Well, that's a queer song to sing to me if you're not.
The song? Oh, it doesn't mean anything. It's by a German Jew, like most patriotic English sentiment. Never mind me, my dear. Go on with your work and don't let me bore you.
Scotland isn't such a lively place that I'm likely to be bored by you at our first talk together after 18 years, though you don't seem to have much to say to me after all. 18
years is a devilish long time, Nora. Now, if we had been 18 minutes or even 18 months, we should be able to pick up the uninterrupted thread and chat like two magpies. But as it is, I have simply nothing to say. And you seem to have less. In a week or so, we shall be quite old friends again. Meanwhile, as I feel that I'm not making myself particularly entertaining, I'll take myself off. Tell Tom I've taken a stroll over the hill.
You seem very fond of Tom, as you call him.
Yes, I'm fond of Tom.
Oh, well, don't let me keep you from him.
I know quite well that my departure will be a relief. Rather a failure, this, our first meeting after 18 years, eh? Well, never mind. These great sentimental events always are failures. And now the worst of it's now over.
Oh, Miss Riley, what's the matter? Don't cry. I can't stand it. You mustn't cry. No, don't try to speak. It's all right now. Have your cry out. Never mind me. Trust me. Just cry on my chest. The only really comfortable place for a woman to cry is a man's chest. Real man, a real friend. Good, broad chest, eh? Not less than 42 inches. No, don't fuss. Never mind the conventions. We're friends, aren't we? Come now, come. It's all right and comfortable and happy now. Isn't it?
Let me go. I want my handkerchief.
Oh, here's a handkerchief. Let me. Never mind your own, it's too small. It's one of those wretched little cambric handkerchiefs.
Indeed, it's a common cotton one.
Of course it's a common cotton one, silly little common cotton one. Not good enough for the dear eyes of Laura Kreiner.
This won't make me laugh. Please don't make me laugh.
I didn't mean to, on my soul. What is it?
Nora
What is it?
Nora Kreiner.
Yes, of course, Nora Kreiner. Nora Akoshla.
Akoshla.
Oh, confound the language. Nora, darling, my Nora. The Nora I love.
You mustn't talk like that to me.
No, of course not. I don't mean it. At least I do mean it, but I know it's premature. I had no right to take advantage of your being a little upset, but I lost my self-control for a moment.
I think you're a very kind-hearted man, Mr. Broadbent. But you seem to have no self-control at all. no more than myself.
Oh, yes, I have. You should see me when I'm really roused. Then I have tremendous self-control. Remember, we have been alone together only once before, and then I regret to say I was in a disgusting state.
Oh no, Mr. Broadbent, you weren't disgusting.
Yes, I was. Nothing can excuse it. Perfectly beastly. It must have made a most unfavorable impression on you.
Oh, sure, it's all right. Say no more about that.
I must, Miss Riley. It's my duty. I shan't detain you long. May I ask you to sit down? First, Miss Riley, may I say that I have tasted nothing of an alcoholic nature today?
It doesn't seem to make as much difference in you as it would in an Irishman somehow.
Perhaps not. Perhaps not. I never quite lose myself.
Well, anyhow, you're all right now.
Thank you, Miss Riley. I am. Now, shall we get along? Nora, I was in earnest last night. No, one moment. You must not think I'm going to press you for an answer before you've known me for 24 hours. I'm a reasonable man, I hope, and I am prepared to wait as long as you like, provided you will give me some small assurance that the answer will not be unfavorable.
How could I go back from it if I did? I sometimes think you're not quite right in your head, Mr. Broadbent. You say such funny things.
Yes, I know I have a strong sense of humor, which sometimes makes people doubt whether I'm quite serious. That is why I have always thought I should like to marry an Irish woman. She would always understand my jokes. For instance, you would understand them,
Mr. Broadbent, I couldn't.
Wait. Let me break this to you gently, Miss Riley. Hear me out. I dare say you've noticed that in speaking to you, I have been putting a very strong constraint upon myself so as to avoid wounding your delicacy by too abrupt an avowal of my feelings. Well, I feel now the time has come for me to be open, to be frank, to be explicit. Miss Riley, you've inspired me in a very strong attachment. Perhaps, with a woman's intuition, you have already guessed that.
Why do you talk to me in that unfeeling, nonsensical way?
Unfeeling, nonsensical.
Don't you know that you've said things to me that no man ought to say to me unless... Oh, go away from me. I won't get married at all, but what is it but heartbreak and disappointment?
Do you mean to say you're going to refuse me, that you don't care for me?
Oh, don't take it to heart, Mr. Brown.
I don't want to be petted and blarneyed. I love you. I want you for my wife. I can't help your refusing. I'm helpless. I can do nothing. You have no right to ruin my whole life. You...
You're not going to cry, are you? I never thought a man could cry. Don't.
I am not crying. I leave that sort of thing to your damned sentimental Irishman. You think I have no feeling because I'm a plain, unemotional Englishman with no powers of expression.
I don't think you're the sort of man at all. Whatever may be the matter with you, it's not want of feeling.
It is you who have no feeling. You are as heartless as Larry.
What do you expect me to do? Is it to throw myself at your head the minute the word is out of your mouth?
Oh, what a fool. What a brute I am. It's only your Irish delicacy, of course. Of course. You mean yes. Eh? What? Yes.
I think you might understand that though I might choose to be an old maid, I could never marry anybody but you now.
That's right. That's right. That's magnificent. I knew you would see what a first-rate thing this will be for both of us.
You're dreadfully strong and a gradual too free with your strength. And I never thought of whether it'd be a good thing for us or not. But when you found me here that time, I let you be kind to me and cried in your arms because I was too wretched to think of anything but the comfort of it. And how could I let another man touch me after that?
Now, that's very nice of you, Nora. That's really most delicately womanly.
Surely if you let one woman cry on you, you'd never let another touch you.
One should not. One ought not, my dear girl. But the honest truth is, if a chap is at all a pleasant sort of chap, his chest becomes a fortification that has to stand many assaults. At least it is so in England.
Then you'd better marry an Englishwoman.
No, the Englishwoman is too prosaic for my taste, too material, too much of the animated beefsteak about her. The ideal is what I like. Now, Larry's taste is just the opposite. He likes them solid and bouncing and rather keen about him. It's a very convenient difference, for we've never been in love with the same woman.
And do you mean to tell me to my face that you've ever been in love before?
Oh, Lord, yes.
I'm not your first love.
First love is only a little foolishness and a lot of curiosity. No really self-respecting woman would take advantage of it. No, my dear Nora, I've done with that long ago. Love affairs always end in rows. We're not going to have any rows. We're going to have a solid, four-square home, man and wife. Comfort and common sense and plenty of affection, eh?
I don't want any other woman's leavings.
No one asked you to, ma'am. I never asked any woman to marry me before.
Then why didn't you if you're an honorable man?
Well, to tell the truth, most of them were married already. But never mind, there was nothing wrong. Come, don't take a mean advantage of me. After all, you must have had a fancy or two yourself, eh?
Yes, I suppose I've no right to be particular.
I know I'm not good enough for you, Nora, but no man is, you know, when a woman is a really nice woman.
Oh, I'm no better than yourself. I may as well tell you about it.
No, let's have no telling. Much better not. I shan't tell you anything. Don't you tell me anything. Perfect confidence in one another and no tellings. That's the way to avoid rows.
Don't think it was anything I need to be ashamed of.
I don't.
It was only that I'd never known anybody else that I could care for. And I was foolish enough to once think that Larry...
Larry! I wouldn't have done it all. Not at all. You don't know Larry as I do, my dear. He has absolutely no capacity for enjoyment. He couldn't make any woman happy. He's as clever as be blowed, but life's too earthly for him. He doesn't care about anything or anybody.
I found that out.
Of course you have. No, my dear, take my word for it. You're jolly well out of that. There. That's more comfortable for you.
You mustn't go on like that. I don't like it.
You'll acquire the taste by degrees. You mustn't mind me. It's an absolute necessity of my nature that I should have somebody to hug occasionally. Besides, it's good for you. It'll plump out your muscles, make them elastic, and set up your figure.
Well, I'm sure if this is English manners, aren't you ashamed to talk about such things?
Not a bit, by George, Nora. It's a tremendous thing to be able to enjoy oneself. Let's go for a walk out of this stuffy little room. I want the open air to expand in. Come along. Come along.
He puts her arm into his and sweeps her out into the garden as an innocuous gale might sweep a dry leaf. Later in the evening, the grasshopper is again enjoying the sunset by the great stone on the hill. But this time he enjoys neither the stimulus of Keegan's conversation nor the pleasure of terrifying Patsy Farrell. He is alone until Nora and Broadbent come up the hill and arm in arm.
I like this spot. I like this view. This would be a jolly good place for a hotel and a golf links. Friday to Tuesday, railway ticket, hotel, all inclusive. I tell you, Nora, I'm going to develop this place. Hello. What's the matter? You tired?
I'm ashamed out of me life.
Ashamed? What of?
How could you drag me all around the place like that, telling everybody we're going to be married and introducing me to the lowest of the low and letting them shake hands with me and encouraging them to make free with us? I little thought I should live to be shaking hands with the Doolin in broad daylight in the public streets of Roscoff.
But my dear, Doolin's a publican, a most influential man. Oh, by the way, I asked him if his wife would be home tomorrow. He said she would, so you must take the motor car around, call on her.
Is it me call on Doolin's wife?
Yes, of course. Call on all their wives. We must get a copy of the register and a supply of canvassing cards. No use calling on people who haven't votes. You'll be a great success as a canvasser, Nora. They call you the heiress, and they'll be flattered, and they'll be flattered no end by your calling, especially as you've never cheapened yourself by speaking to them before. Have you?
Not likely, indeed.
Well, we mustn't be stiff and stand off, you know. We must be thoroughly democratic and patronize everyone without distinction of class. I tell you, I am a jolly lucky man, Nora Kreiner. I get engaged to the most delightful woman in Ireland, and it turns out that I couldn't have done a smarter stroke of electioneering.
And would you let me demean myself like that, just to get yourself into Parliament?
Ah! Wait till you find out what an exciting game electioneering is. You'll be mad to get me in. Besides, you'd like people to say that Tom Broadbent's wife had been the making of him, that she got him into Parliament, into the cabinet, perhaps?
God knows I don't grudge you me money, but to lower myself to the lowest level of common people.
To a member's wife, Nora, nobody is common, provided he's on the register. Come, my dear, it's all right. Do you think I'd let you do it if it wasn't? The best people do it. Everybody does it.
Well, perhaps you know best what they do in England. They must have very little respect for themselves. I think I'll go now. I see Larry and Mr. Keegan coming up the hill, and I'm not fit to talk to them.
Just wait and say something nice to Keegan. Keegan. They tell me he controls nearly as many votes as Father Dempsey himself.
You little know Peter Keegan. He'd see through me as if I was a pane of glass.
No, he won't like it any the less for that. What really flatters a man is that you think him worth flattering. Not that I would flatter any man. I don't think that. I'll just go and meet him.
Nora, when I left you that time, I was just as wretched as you. I didn't rightly know what I wanted to say, and my tongue kept clacking to cover the loss I was at. Well, I've been thinking ever since, and now I know what I ought to have said. I've come back to say it.
You've come too late then. You thought 18 years was not too long enough, and that you might keep me waiting a day longer? Well, you're mistaken. I'm engaged to your friend, Mr. Broadbent, and I'm done with you.
Oh, but that is the very thing I was going to advise you to do.
Oh, you brute, to tell me that to my face.
Well, Nora, dear, don't you understand that I'm an Irishman and he's an Englishman? If he wants you and he grabs you. If I want you, I quarrel with you and have to go on wanting you.
So you may. You better go back to England to the animated beefsteaks you're so fond of.
Nora. He's been talking about me, I see. Well, never mind. We must be friends, you and I. I don't want his marriage to you to be his divorce from me.
You care more for him than you ever did for me.
Yes, of course I do. Why should I tell lies about it? Nora Riley was a person of little consequence to me or anyone outside this miserable little hole, but Mrs. Tom Broadbent will be a person of very considerable consequence indeed. Play your new part well, and there will be no more neglect, no more loneliness, no more idle regrettings and vain hopings in the evenings by the round tower, but real life and real work and real cares and real joys among real people. Solid English life in London, the very centre of the world. You will find your work cut out for you keeping Tom's house and entertaining Tom's friends and getting Tom into Parliament, but it'll be worth the effort.
You talk as if were under an obligation to him for marrying me.
Oh, I talk as I think. You've made a very good match, let me tell you.
Indeed. Well, some people might say that he's not done so badly for himself.
If you mean that you will be a treasure to him, he thinks so now, and you can keep him thinking that as long as you like.
I wasn't thinking of myself at all.
Were you thinking of your money, Nora?
I didn't say so.
Your money will not pay a cook's wages in London.
If that's true, and the more shame for you to throw it in my face, if it is true, at all events, it'll make us independent. For if the worst comes to worst, he can always come back here and live on it. And if I have to keep his house for him, at all events, I can keep you out of it, for I've done with you. And I wish I'd never seen you. So, goodbye to you, Mr. Larry Doyle.
Goodbye. Goodbye. Oh, that's so Irish. Irish, both of us to the background. Irish, Irish, Irish.
Well, nothing pays like a golfing hotel. If you hold the land instead of the shares, and if the furniture people stand in with you, and if you're a good man of business.
Nora's gone home.
Oh, you were right this morning, Larry. I must feed up Nora. She's weak. It makes her fanciful. Oh, by the way, did I tell you that we're engaged?
She told me herself.
She's rather full of it, as you may imagine. Poor Nora. Well, Mr. Keegan, as I said, I begin to see my way here. I begin to see my way. You're muted, Mr. Keegan.
The conquering Englishman, sir. Within 24 hours of your arrival, you have carried off our only heiress and practically secured the parliamentary seat. You promised me that when I come here in the evenings to meditate on my madness, to watch the shadow of the round tower lengthening in the sunset, to break my heart uselessly in the curtain gloaming over the dead heart and blinded soul of the island of the saints, you will comfort me with the bustle of a great hotel and the sight of the little children carrying the golf clubs of your tourists as a preparation for the life to come.
Yes, Mr. Keegan, you're quite right. There's poetry in everything, even in the most prosaic things, if you know how to extract it. Now, if I was to be shot for it, I couldn't extract it myself. But that's where you come in, you see. And then I shall wake you up a bit. And that's where I come in, eh? You see? Hey, hey! Just so, just so. Well, by the way, I believe I can do better than a light railway here. There seems to be no question now that the motorboat has come to stay. I mean, look at your magnificent river there. It's just going to waste.
Silent, O more, will be the roar of thy waters.
You know, the roar of a motorboat is really quite pretty.
Provided it does not drown the Angelus.
Oh, no, 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 it won't do that. Not the least danger. You know, a church bell can make a devil of a noise when it likes.
You have an answer for everything, sir. But your plans leave one question still unanswered. How to get butter out of a dog's throat?
Eh?
You cannot build your golf links and hotels in the air. For that, you must own the land. And how will you drag our acres from the ferret's grip of Matthew Haffigan? How will you persuade Cornelius Doyle to forgo the pride of being a small landowner? How will Barney Doran's mill race agree with your motorboats? Will Doolan help you get a license for your hotel?
My dear sir, to all intents and purposes, the syndicate I represent already owns half Roscoff. Doolan's is a tied house, and the brewers are in the syndicate. As to Haffigan's farms and Doran's mill and Mr. Doyle's place and half a dozen others, they will be mortgaged to me before a month is out.
Oh, but pardon me, you will not lend them more than their land is worth, so they will be able to pay you the interest.
You are a poet, Mr. Keegan, not a man of business.
We will lend every one of these men half as much again as their land is worth or ever can be worth to them.
You forget, sir, that we, with our capital, our knowledge, our organization, and may I say our English business habits, can make or lose 10 pounds of land that Haffigan, with all his industry, could not make or lose 10 shillings out of. Doran's mill is a superannuated folly. I shall want it for electric lighting.
Oh, what's the use of giving land to such men? They are too small, too poor, too ignorant, too simple-minded to hold it against us. You might as well give a dukedom to a crossing sweeper.
Yes, yes, Mr. Keegan. This place may have an industrial future, or it may have a residential future. I can't tell yet, but it is not going to be a future in the hands of your Dorans and Haffigans, poor devils.
It may have no future at all. Have you thought of that?
Oh, I'm not afraid of that. I have faith in Ireland. Great faith, Mr. Keegan.
And we have none. Only empty enthusiasms and patriotisms and emptier memories and regrets. Ah, yes. You have some excuse for believing that if there be any future, it'll be yours. Or for our faith seems dead and our hearts cold and cowed. And islands of dreamers who wake up in your jails, of critics and cowards whom you buy and tame for your own service, of bold rogues who help you to plunder us, that they may plunder you afterwards, eh?
Yes, but you might say that of any country. The fact is there are only two qualities in the world. Efficiency, inefficiency. And only two sorts of people. The efficient and the inefficient. It don't matter whether they're English or Irish. I shall collar this place, not because I'm an Englishman and Haffigan and company are Irishmen, but because they're duffers, and I know my way about.
Have you considered what is to become of Haffigan?
Oh, we'll employ him in some capacity or another and probably pay him more than he makes for himself now.
You think so? No. Haffigan's too old. It really doesn't pay now to take on men over 40, even for unskilled labor, which I suppose is all Haffigan would be good for. No. Haffigan had better go to America or into the Union, poor old chap. He's worked out, You can see it.
Poor lost soul, so cunningly fenced in with invisible bars.
Haffigan doesn't matter much. He'll die presently.
Oh, come, Larry, don't be unfeeling. It's hard on Haffigan. It's always hard on the inefficient.
Pa, what does it matter where the old and broken man spends the last days, or whether he has $1 million at the bank or only a workhouse dole? It's the young man, the able man, that matter. The real tragedy of Haffigan is the tragedy of his wasted youth, his stunted mind, his trudging over his clods and pigs, till he has become a clod and pig himself, till the soul within the man is smouldered to nothing but a dull temper that hurts himself and all around him. I say, let him die, and let us have no more of his like. And let the young Ireland take care it doesn't share his fate, instead of making another empty grievance of it. Let your syndicate come in and...
Your syndicate too, old chap. You have your bit of the stock.
Yes, mine if you like. Well, our syndicate has no conscience. It has no more regard for your Haffigans and Doolans and Dorans than it has for a gang of Chinese coolies. It will use your patriotic blatherskite and balderdash to get parliamentary powers over as cynically as if you would bait a mousetrap with toasted cheese. It will plan and organize and find capital while you slave like bees for it and revenge yourselves by the paying politicians and penny newspapers out of your small wages to write articles and report speeches against the wickedness and tyranny and to crack up your own Irish heroism, just as Haffigan once paid a witch a penny to put a spell on Billy Burns' co. In the end, it will grind the nonsense out of you and grind strength and sense into you.
Why can't you say a silly thing, a simple thing, simply, Larry, without all that Irish exaggeration and talky-talky? The syndicate is a perfectly respectable body of responsible men of good position. We'll take Ireland in hand and by straightforward business habits teach it efficiency and self-help on sound liberal principles. You agree with me, Mr. Keegan, don't you?
Sir, I may even vote for you.
You shall never regret it, Mr. Keegan. I give you my word for that. I shall bring money here. I shall raise wages. I shall found public institutions, a library, a polytechnic, undenominational, of course, a gymnasium, a cricket club, perhaps an art school. I shall make a garden city of Roscoff. The round tower shall be thoroughly repaired and restored.
And our place of torment shall be as clean and orderly as the cleanest and most orderly place I know in Ireland, which is our poetically named Mountjoy prison. Well, perhaps I'd better vote for an efficient devil that knows his own mind and his own business than for a foolish patriot who has no mind and no business.
Devil is a rather strong expression in that connection, Mr. Keegan.
Not from a man who knows that this world is hell. But since the word offends you, let me soften it and compare you simply to an ass.
An ass.
You may take it without offense from a madman who calls the ass his brother, and a very honest and useful and faithful brother too. The ass, sir, is the most efficient of beasts. Matter of fact, hardly friendly when you treat him as a fellow creature, stubborn when you abuse him, ridiculous only in love, which sets him braying, and in politics, which move him to roll about in the public road and raise a dust about nothing. Can you deny these qualities and habits in yourself, sir?
Yes, I'm afraid I do, you know.
Oh, well, perhaps you will confess to the ass's one fault.
Perhaps so. What is it?
That he wastes all his virtues, his efficiency, as you call it, in doing the will of his greedy masters instead of doing the will of heaven, that is in himself. He is efficient in the service of mammon, mighty in mischief, skillful in ruin, heroic in destruction. But he comes to browse here without knowing that the soil his hoof touches is holy ground. Ireland, sir, for good or evil, is like no other place under heaven, and no man can touch his sod or breathe its air without becoming better or worse. It produces two kinds of men in strange perfection, saints and traitors. It's called the island of the saints, but indeed in these latter years it might be more fitly called the island of the traitors. For our harvest of these is the fine flower of the world's crop of infamy. But the day may come when these islands shall live by the quality of their men, rather than by the abundance of their minerals. And then we shall see.
Mr. Keegan, if you're going to be sentimental about Ireland, I shall bid you good evening. We have had enough of that, sir, and more than enough of your cleverly proven everybody who is not an Irishman is an ass. It is neither good sense nor good manners. It will not stop the syndicate, and it will not interest young Ireland so much as my friend's gospel of efficiency.
Yes, yes. Efficiency is the thing. I don't in the least mind your chaff, Mr. Keegan. But Larry's right on the main point. The world belongs to the efficient.
Oh, I stand rebuked, gentlemen. But believe me, I do every justice to the efficiency of you and your syndicate. You are both, I am told, thoroughly efficient civil engineers, and I have no doubt the golf links will be a triumph of your art. Mr. Broadbent will get into Parliament most efficiently, which is more than St. Patrick could do if he were alive now. You may even build the hotel efficiently if you can find enough efficient masons, carpenters, and plumbers, which I rather doubt. When the hotel becomes insolvent, your English business habits will secure the thorough efficiency of the liquidation. You will reorganize the scheme efficiently. You will liquidate its second bankruptcy efficiently. You will get rid of its original shareholders efficiently, after efficiently ruining them. And you will finally profit very efficiently by getting that hotel for a few shillings in the pound. Besides those efficient operations, you will foreclose the mortgages most efficiently. You will drive Haffigan to America very efficiently. You will find a use for Barney Doran's foul mouth and bullying temper by employing him to slave drive your labours very efficiently. And when at last this poor desolate countryside becomes a busy mint in which we shall all slave to make money for you with our polytechnic to teach us how to do it efficiently, and our library to fuddle the few imaginations your distilleries will spare, and our repaired round tower with admission sixpence and refreshments and penny in the slot mutoscopes to make it interesting, then no doubt your English and American shareholders will spend all the money we make for them very efficiently in shooting and hunting, in operations for cancer and appendicitis, in gluttony and gambling, and you will devote what they save to fresh land development schemes. For 4 wicked centuries, the world has dreamed this foolish dream of efficiency, and the end is not yet, but the end will come. You're muted, Ben.
Too true, Mr. Keegan. Only too true. And most eloquently put. Reminds me of poor Ruskin, a great man, you know. I sympathize. Believe me, I am on your side. Well, don't sneer, Larry. I used to read a lot of Shelley years ago. Let us be faithful to the dreams of our youth.
Oh, come, Mr. Doyle. Is this English sentiment so much more efficient than our Irish sentiment? After all, Mr. Broadbent spends his life inefficiently admiring the thoughts of great men and efficiently serving the cupidity of base money-hunters. We spend our lives efficiently sneering at him and doing nothing. Which of us has any right to approach the other?
But you know, something must be done.
Yes. When we cease to do, we cease to live. Well, what shall we do?
Why, what lies to our hand?
Which is the making of golf links and hotels to bring idlers to a country which workers have left in millions, because it is a hungry land, a naked land, an ignorant and oppressed land.
Yes, but hang it all, the idlers will bring money from England to Ireland.
Just as our idlers have for so many generations taken money from Ireland to England. Has that saved England from poverty and degradation more horrible than we have ever dreamed of? When I went to England, sir, I hated England. Now I pity it.
Much good your pity will do it.
In the accounts kept in heaven, Mr. Doyle, a heart purified of hatred may be worth more than a land development syndicate of Anglicized Irishmen and Gladstone-ized Englishmen.
Oh, in heaven, no doubt. I've never been there. Can you tell me where it is?
Could you have told me this morning where hell is? Yet you know now that it is here. Do not despair of finding heaven. Maybe no further off.
On this holy ground, as you call it, eh?
Yes, perhaps. Even on this holy ground, which such Irishmen as you have turned into a land of derision.
Take care, take care. You will be quarreling presently. Oh, you Irishmen. You Irishmen. Toujours ballyhooly, eh? Stick to the Englishman, Mr. Keegan. He has a bad name here, but at least he can forgive you for being an Irishman.
Sir, when you speak to me of English and Irish, you forget that I am a Catholic. My country is not Ireland or England, but the whole mighty realm of my church. For me, there are but two countries, heaven and hell, but two conditions of men, salvation and damnation. Standing here between you, the Englishman, so clever in your foolishness, and this Irishman, so foolish in his cleverness, I cannot in my ignorance be sure which of you is the more deeply damned. But I should be unfaithful to my calling if I opened the gates of my heart less widely to one than to the other.
In either case, it would be impertinence, Mr. Keegan, as your approval is of not the slightest consequence to us. What use do you suppose all this drivel is to men with serious practical business in hand?
I don't agree with that, Larry. I think these things cannot be said too often. They keep up the moral tone of the community. As you know, I claim the right to think for myself in religious matters. In fact, I'm ready to avow myself a bit of a, well, I don't care who knows it, a bit of a Unitarian. But if the Church of England contained a few men like Mr. Keegan, I should certainly enjoy it.
You do be too much honor, sir. Mr. Doyle, I am to blame for having unintentionally set your mind somewhat on edge against me. I beg your pardon.
I didn't stand on ceremony with you. You needn't stand on it with me. Fine manners and fine words are cheap in Ireland. You can have both. For my friend here, who is still imposed on by them, I know their value.
You mean you don't know their value?
I mean what I say.
You see, Mr. Broadbent, I only make the hearts of my countrymen harder when I preach to them. The gates of hell still prevail against me. I shall wish you good evening. I am better alone at the round tower, dreaming of heaven.
Aye, that's it. There you are, dreaming, 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 dreaming.
Every dream is a prophecy. Every jest is an earnest in the womb of time.
You know, once when I was a small kid, I dreamt I was in heaven. It was a sort of pale blue satin place with all the pious old ladies in our congregation sitting as if they were at a service. And there was some awful person in the study at the other side of the hall. I didn't enjoy it, you know. What's it like in your dreams?
Oh, in my dreams, it is a country where the state is the church and the church is the people. 3 in 1 and 1 in 3. It is a commonwealth in which work is play and play is life. 3 in 1 and 1 in 3. It is a temple in which the priest is the worshipper and the worshipper the worshipped. 3 in 1 and 1 in 3. It is a Godhead in which all life is human and all humanity divine. 3 in 1 and 1 in 3. It is, in short, the dream of a madman.
What a regular old church and state Tory he is. He's a character. He'll be an attraction here. Really, almost equal to Ruskin and Carlyle.
Oh, yes. Much good they did with all their talk.
Oh, tut, tut, Larry. They improved my mind. They raised my tone enormously. I feel sincerely obliged to Keegan. He's made me feel a better man, distinctly better. I feel now, as I never did before, that I am right in devoting my life to the cause of Ireland. But come along, help me choose a site for the hotel.
And curtain. Bravo, everybody.
Gentlemen,
That is
This is one of
brutal.
Shaw's most difficult plays, I think, to pull off.
Boy, that's
I
of
love-
all the ones we've done. I don't know why. I'd love to do this one. I'd love to see it really convincingly. All those ideas
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
and these little gems. As I was reading it, I was copying little quotes into my own journals.
Yeah.
I've never done that reading other Shaw
Yeah.
plays.
I love that last scene. It's
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, none of them let go. He doesn't really give one of them the right answer and one the wrong
No.
and have one
No.
preach. So it's so
No, he doesn't. Shaw doesn't pull any punches in this one.
Yeah.
He really goes after everybody.
That's right.
I saw
That's
this
right.
play done at the Shaw Festival up in Canada. Really good production.
Oh, they do put it on once in a while. Man, I'd love to
Oh,
see
yeah.
it.
Yeah. Now and
Yeah.
then. Well,
Yeah.
certainly up there they do because they do all Shaw's.
The full play?
Even vaguely doable.
David, the full play?
I'm sorry.
The full play? They do the whole play?
Yeah.
No cuts.
I don't know if they took any cuts or not. I didn't have a script in front of me, so I don't know if they.
Well, was it this long?
Well, it was pretty long. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
when I was in Urbana-Champaign working with Illinois Rep, they used to do shows occasionally, and there was a Shaw Society there, and the members of the Shaw Society would come along and they would pretty much say the lines with the actors.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Like the Gilbert and Sullivan crowd.
Oh
Yeah. They
God,
sing
yes.
along. Yeah.
And interesting, when I lived in Norwich way back, the founder of the Madam Market Theatre was Inigo Monk, had been a great friend of Shaw, and Shaw had given Monk the rights to do all his plays in perpetuity without paying any license. So, of course, they did a show every year.
Wow.
I was in
was a
Norwich
heck
once,
of
but
a
I
gift.
don't think that there was anything on at that time.
Yeah. Well, the theatre I was in, it was an Amdram company called the Madder. Well, it was an odd theatre because Monk paid the directors and the costume people and the stage management and the paid all the tech people, but the actors were all the anonymous members of the Madder Market Resident Theatre Company. And it was the great tradition that the names of the actors did not appear in the programs, and the press had bought into it. So they would review the plays and talk about the performances, but they would never mention the name of the actor that was actually in it. And everybody just bought the rule.
Interesting.
Good company.
Of course, it's hard to get tech people for free.
Well, yeah. But the Madder market, it was originally the site of the market where the dye, madder, the plant dye was sold. So that was in East Anglia, which was almost a garden of Britain at that time, where most of the food was produced, where Boudicca destroyed the Second Legion, I think. I'm not sure which one she was. But that was the center of agriculture. And Norwich was, in fact, pretty much the center of England. London was just a little village on the side of this river that spread. The center of England was Norwich.
Well, everyone, this was really a very interesting afternoon, but I have company, so I need to depart. But thank you.
I'm going to stop the.
Before anybody parts, let's just say a quick welcome to our new actress.
Yeah.
Madam Cooney, appropriately named.
Yeah.
Yes.